overview with that. That would be super helpful. So if we make that change, I can communicate it in a non-kindergartner
Yes.
manner.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you very much, Chair.
All right. Before I go to Madam Chair, do you have anything, Councilmember Mohammed?
Just quickly,
Okay.
not a lot, but
Fine.
just wanted to weigh in on the base FAR. I would not be looking to increase the base FAR. Siding with my colleagues on that. Also supporting the sidewalks, payment in lieu, and you lifted up the preserving existing trees. We're hearing that as well. But other than that, I do need to schedule a round of one-on-ones because this is a complicated topic. And it's bringing me back to when we opened, you asked about those who were not here, but I remember in a prior role when the FAR conversation was had, we used to meet over at the hall. Rob and I, we would talk through some of these things. And
There was a lot of
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
I mean, that was
Yeah.
a 2-year package
Yeah.
from the time I started till we got adoption, so.
I think we all were in different roles at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just appreciate the work and the update to see that it is working. I did have that same question because I'm seeing a lot of those homes with those pitched roofs, and I had that question too, like, is that a 2-story house? Because we're seeing a lot of those also in neighborhoods in District 7. So thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Madam Chair Fig Sanders?
Thank you. Mine are going to be quick. I just wanted to, and first of all, I don't know how you all keep this all together. It's a lot to remember. Can you go to the 4 to 6 foot tall opaque background slide for me, please? Because I just wanted to plead my case as to moving some of this
Maybe you
along.
can hit escape and then you can get all your slides up at once.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
And when I do have a mouse. Cheat code.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I couldn't hear, where are we going with this?
Oh,
one?
to the 4 to 6 foot tall.
Oh, the fence.
Fence is
Okay.
Yeah.
Fence is
Was
all-
that your new business item from
Yep.
PSNI back in the day?
3
Okay.
years ago.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It was right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a couple of questions on that one. This major issue, for my colleagues' understanding, is we talked about the fencing and it being completely across the front yard, which completely took the views from like 5 surrounding houses that were sold as waterfront properties. And so that's where this came from. And so a couple of issues that I want to see if you can answer, and then we'll do more one-on-one on it. That particular fence, that opaque fence, was said that it's not more than 6 feet, but it really is, because they were saying that they were adding backfill dirt to the fence to measure the actual height, but not the outside appearance of the fence. You know what I'm saying? The fence was like 7 feet, 8 feet.
There was a complaint that the grade was changed in order to allow a higher fence, but we did not substantiate that in our field investigation.
So how will we move that going further with this being one of the LDR changes? Because not only do we have a 2-story house, but we have an opaque fence that really edges the water, that totally took the homeowner's views of the water completely. How do we outweigh one, and I don't know, infringement over the other? How are we going to do that with this LDR change, or has that even been a consideration?
So I think what we were talking about was potentially allowing 4 foot solid and then the next 2 feet be transparent, open, so you could have a solid wall and then use like a metal or another decorative
Kinda like
to
the
get
top
you to
right.
6 feet, yeah.
Yeah, like the one you see over to the right.
Right, like the, yeah, or
As an option.
as an option. I mean, right now, they have to have columns every 10 feet and landscaping, right? If they want a solid 6.
It's like columns every 24 feet and they're 2 feet wide, and then there's
Right.
landscaping in front of that.
In front of it in order to kind of
Break up the mass.
break up the mass, but we could add, a requirement for transparency to make it not be solid at 6 feet.
So that was my next question is this going to be grandfathered in with the current LDR change?
Yes, it would be. Yeah, we
Okay.
don't make people go back and
Okay.
remove their,
Okay.
bring them up to compliance.
So yeah, I am going to ditto what my other colleagues are saying in regards to the other issues, but this was one that we've been working on now for quite a while. And so to answer your response, Liz, when you said if we want to just move it all together at one time, so that'll be like going on year, 3, 4 for this one? So if we can move some, I would like to move some, but, you know, I'll go with the majority. But, yeah, this one has been a minute. This one has been a really long time. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents on that one. Thank you, Chair.
All right, very good. Well, I will quickly kind of run through, and I'll try to keep them in order of the presentation. I got numbers here, so hopefully I got it right. Let's start with FAR. So in 2016, 2017, I wasn't here, but I was on the advocacy side, right? And I was running for office. So I was very, very tuned in to what was happening around this issue. I know what the issues were as a real estate professional that led us to that conversation. And I understood the rationale because people were building these big, quite frankly, ugly boxes in the middle of our beautifully historic neighborhoods. They weren't designated yet at the time, but they were very much changing the character, right? But then it was this balance of how do we make sure that we keep that character while still making sure that we're allowing infill development. And to that point, there was a big push at that time because so much of our housing stock was the 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes that really were not fitting what people needed to continue to make St. Pete a viable place for people to live. So there was this balance that had to be struck. And from what we're seeing, what I physically see when I am out in the neighborhoods and what I see from the data that you have brought, there is no reason to go backwards. There is no reason for us to go into this exercise of re-exploration because what you guys did worked. That is not happening anymore. And while there may be some nuanced issues here and there with things like, are we taking up too much green space, things like that, I do think that is really, really specific to certain neighborhoods. And it's really challenging for me personally to create new LDRs around something that is such a localized issue. So I am not in favor of sending you guys down that path of exploring the FAR again because I think what we did worked. So I'll just leave it at that with that particular issue. Wanted to ask some questions around fencing. Okay, this could be my ignorance, but do fences require a permit?
Not residential.
I didn't think so. Okay.
The walls would, but not
The walls do, but not like you have a wooden fence now and you want to put up a PVC vinyl fence. You don't have to get a permit to do that. Is it not? So we talk about the non-traditional materials when it comes to like the metal fences. It only makes sense to me that we would require traditional materials on fencing, period. I don't know why we would allow, but if we don't have a permitting system for that, how do we monitor that? How do we work on it?
It's codes complaint.
Code, okay,
So
okay.
that's what the metal fences were.
Yeah,
Codes
that was a codes
complaint
issue, okay.
and certain
Yeah,
homeowners who were advocating for us to change the code to
Right.
allow the metal.
okay, got it. I mean, for me, I just feel like if we're gonna go down a path, I agree, it should be traditional materials across the board. That just makes sense from an aesthetics point of view, from even the point of view, like you think like we have a hurricane coming, right? And these are windborne, oftentimes fences are the worst windborne debris there is. And if you have non-traditional materials, they're not made to withstand that. So I look at that almost like kind of that sort of danger issue as well. So I want to move then just real quick on bay windows. That popped out at me because in my district, there are like these 1960s neighborhoods, I live in one, where there were design standards at that time that bay windows were very popular. And so I just want to make sure, and I understand the desire to create that in the code, but if somebody goes in and they need to replace that bay window to the same point as what we were talking about with the kind of retrofitting on the fences, we wouldn't require them to come up to what we're looking at for
So
the
there's
new-
already a provision in the code for bay windows. What it doesn't do is define what that is.
So, okay.
And
you're
so
just
what the
looking to
builders
define
have
it.
been wanting to do is it's not just what you think of a traditional
Yeah,
bay
it's a
window.
little bay window.
It's actually popping the entire floor out
Okay.
for 3 feet.
Got
and
it.
calling that a bay because there's a a bay window because it's a bay.
Ah.
There's a window.
So it's not that
it was
they're-
trying to better define what it is that can come out.
Got
and
it.
How much.
Got
and
it.
How much window does there have to be in order for it to be a bay window?
Okay.
As opposed to just a projection of extra floor space for a room that is
Got it.
bumping into the side yard setback.
So developers were using something that was missing in our code to be able to expand their footprint on,
So we were
say, a
having
front
a
room.
lot of back and forth about our interpretation of a bay window
Okay.
versus what they were saying was a bay window.
Got
We want
it.
that, our code to be clear on what a bay window is.
Understood.
And what they can do under that provision.
Okay, all right. I just wanted, just because I know there's so many neighborhoods that were kind of
We don't
built,
want to
especially
eliminate the ability to do
Yeah.
it. We just want to clarify what it is.
because they fit in the suburban neighborhoods
Yeah.
that were built in that era. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that, just for my own knowledge. I agree with, I think Councilmember Floyd was the first one to say it, and the comments here about creating the fund around the sidewalks. Sidewalks is an issue. We've been trying to figure out for a long time how to continue to pay for more sidewalks, repaired sidewalks, expansion. I fully, fully support exploration of that. So hope to see that come back at another time. Domestic equipment, not surprised. I agree. We shouldn't be parking that stuff in the front yard. So I'm glad to see that the residents were on that. Existing trees, very supportive of all of that as well. And then the ADU changes. Councilmember Floyd, or Councilmember Gertis brought that up, and I'm very supportive of us exploring that as well, and would also like to request a one-on-one for that. So the last thing, committee, there was a question, do we need this to come back here, seeing as how it's so complex and there's a lot of moving pieces before it goes to full council at some point later this year, early next year? I'm seeing a nod yes, a nod yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. And I mean, I think they're pretty nuanced issues. So, I mean, we wouldn't have to have this full package presentation, but we could get an update on these kind of highlighted issues that it seems to be we're kind of all in consensus of interest on.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of feedback today. That's going to help us finish our strike-through underline that we've been working on.
Yeah,
And we can bring that, I think.
And then if we can maybe
Yeah.
get another committee meeting in November. If we can
November?
Get that on the calendar, then we could, then we can potentially come back in December for adoption versus if we push to next year, we're going to have some new council members.
True.
That we're going to need to educate them.
we'll have to
and-
start over.
So we were hopeful to get something done this year.
Okay.
With the council that's familiar with these issues and that we've gotten feedback from.
Okay. So real quick, Brian, did we have anything already lined up for November? I don't think we did we? And what is the date for the November meeting? Guess I could pull up my own calendar. I apologize.
And we could, maybe we'll be a little more drilled down and we can share if there's something else needs to go.
November 7th, so it's early in November. So would that be enough time for us to be able to schedule this for early December council meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we can commit to
We
that.
get the one-on-ones in the next
Right.
Yeah.
We'll do the one-on-ones.
Yeah. Okay, well, we can commit to bringing it back then in that November meeting. That's not a problem. So thank you all so much. This is a super, it's not complex necessarily, but it's just a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah,
So really appreciate all of your hard work. I echo, I don't know how you keep it all straight, but you do, thank God, Liz and her spreadsheets. So thank you. Because I know there's been lots of conversations, especially over the last year, of like, hey, I want to talk about this. And you're like, that's the LDRs. I want to talk about this. That's the LDRs. So I'm glad that we're here today. Thank you for kind of bringing it full circle.
And so what we'll do is we'll still take the strike-through underline
Yes.
package to DRC
Yes,
in
yes.
November. So
Absolutely.
we come to you the next day.
Oh, it'll be the day after. Okay.
Yes, then we'll be able to report on what we got, and that will help us to refine the ordinance.
So you have the workshop in October, the DRC meeting the day before. Bring us the
Then you'll have the strike-through
report.
underline, you can give us more feedback on that.
Perfect.
So when we prepare the ordinance for you.
Yes.
For December, we will have gotten we'll have another round of feedback from you.
Perfect. And then we will plan
That'll
on
make
hopefully this
December go
going in
smoothly,
December.
Because they're gonna have to
Yes.
go back to back.
Got it.
because there's only 1 week between the two so
The end of the year push.
that'll give us the ability to get it done.
All right.
With that
Very good.
strategy.
Well, thank you again. Thank you, administration and legal. We appreciate all of your help and support. Thank you, colleagues. And with that, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Today, we had our Contracts and Contacts bus tour in partnership with PSTA and several other businesses and agencies in our area. While the city definitely has tons of opportunities for our small minority women-based businesses, it's no guarantee that you can get on a contract here or there. So they need to know about all the different opportunities that are available to them in our areas.
We want to invest into our community. So for us to educate them and them educate us, it's a win-win for both of us. We also find that the community, when they can actually put their stamp on a project and say, I was part of that, it's just a wonderful sense of accomplishment.
There is lots of opportunity out there, not just within the city, but around the city, in the county even, for them to get work and do work right here locally, close to them. We just want to make sure we have the engagement and increase the likelihood of small businesses being able to participate.
In order for us to help them, we provide ways in which we can just put the word out there of the work that they do, so that way they can be contracted and win these projects. It's easy to say, oh, that's a $200 million project, and they're not gonna look at me. Well, you know what? They're looking for small businesses.
We did a lot of networking on each of the buses between the different groups, and there was a lot of really, really good conversation I heard being had. People was kind of saying like, oh, I could use you on this project, and I'm working on a project that I need this type of work on. And so those connections were going on, you know, even as we were riding the bus to the different stops.
It's a benefit to both the city and to us as business owners to come together, to network. After all, we live here, and so what better way to come together and make the city better than to use our talents and our skills and our expertise to make a positive difference.
It's been really exciting to see this program develop. We've been registered as a small business with the city for several years now. I'm really excited that they have expressed that commitment to encouraging small businesses like mine.
I think that it says that this city cares about its businesses and its minorities within the city.
For me, I feel like this is huge because a lot of times we hear people talk, but there's little action behind it. So this is a place where the talk and the actions align, where we see a real commitment from the city to increase the number of diverse suppliers and to create a pathway to allow us access to those opportunities.
We do plan on having a lot more creative, new types of events coming out of our office, so we're just looking forward to offer our business community something different and something that they can hopefully make new connections with.
When I decided to transition and retire, and you had told me if I ever retire, you would like to throw your hat in the ring. And I said, there is no ring. And then I turned it over to the Board of Trustees, but I did give them this 411. Erica is an intelligent, credentialed person, working artist, but she's an artist. And I think that's important. And whatever degree of difference that is, how an artist approaches things, that's what I wanted. And you went through the process, and that's what the board agreed on. The future is always bright, but under your tutelage, it's going to be delicious.
I thank you for that.
No, because my generation, the baby boomers, we don't tend to get off the stage. You got to get the hook. Oh, there's always one other thing we can do, and I'm looking forward to that, seeing what's next.
I think we talked about it before, we have the same sentiment about the space and what our job is. My job is to maintain the heartbeat that has already been created in this space. I am not here to alter the heartbeat. I'm here to take this heartbeat and strengthen it and bring a bigger light so that the world can see it as much as I can, and to take that to whatever that next level is.
Well, as I told the Board of Trustees, we're getting an A+ candidate that you would normally have to scour nationally. And then she has the added thing of she knows this community and the community knows her.
I'm walking in the footsteps of a founder of an organization that is beloved, but I know that I gotta try it, and I know that we can do it.
I look at Woodlawn as probably the most neighbor-friendly, kid-friendly neighborhood that I've ever lived in. It's a wonderful neighborhood to grow up in. I wish I was a kid growing up in this neighborhood.
It's a real family-oriented community, super close to downtown, and it's just kind of one of those picturesque, nice, quaint little neighborhoods.
I think what was really cool about the neighborhood is it's different compared to a lot of the other neighborhoods where part of it is on the circles. So as soon as we drove in on the neighborhood looking for a house, I just knew that this neighborhood had kind of some extra character to it.
Woodlawn has got a circular style to it, design to it, and you can see from some of these old pictures that there really is a circle or an oval to Woodlawn neighborhood.
My favorite part of the day is driving home. You turn onto our street from MLK, and there's beautiful oak trees, blooming crepe myrtles, and then there's a park. We have a park just at the end of our street. So here in Woodlawn, we have 3 public parks within our community.
We use those parks a lot for our garage sale in the fall. There's cookouts that go on in those neighborhood parks, and they become very handy.
And that's where we have all of the holiday events, all of our neighborhood events, potlucks, things like that. But then on the weekends, you can just kind of go out there and hang out. So I've worked out in the park, take my dog to the park. There's a basketball hoop for the neighborhood kids to hang out. Got it!
As the fall and into the winter and into the holiday season, Every one of those little pocket parks gets used for certain events.
Christmas caroling going on during Christmas. There's an Easter egg hunt through the neighborhood. Halloween is huge in this neighborhood.
And then Halloween, you forget about it. It is crazy around here.
Woodlawn likes to party.
So, like everything, trees come and go, and a lot of the trees in this neighborhood are laurel oaks, and they've got a time period of about 70 years in their lifespan. And we realized early on that the trees in this neighborhood were going to go away. What we did several years ago as part of a grant is got additional oak trees planted in several of those quadrant parks, just to give a little shade so it's not as hot during the summer. And I would guarantee that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, the folks that are living here in these houses will be looking at those trees, wondering who planted them, and gosh darn it, they got to be getting old. Maybe we need to think about putting some new ones in.
There's so many generations of families here, old houses, new houses, young families, families that have been here for 20 years. But amidst all that, it's just a really cool community feel.
When we saw this house, as scary as it was, we knew it was the house just based on coming into the neighborhood and feeling so welcomed.
And the other interesting thing is about the folks that live in Woodlawn, the majority of them are very passionate about living here.
It's just a very outgoing and nice community.
So the one thing that I would like to lift up and make sure that everybody hears is that there's two Childs Parks. There's the Childs Park that you hear about and that you read about, but then there's my Childs Park. The parameters of Childs Park include 34th Street South to 49th Street, and then 18th Avenue to 5th Avenue South. And that's the Childs Park neighborhood, but the greater Childs Park area actually covers about 3 neighborhoods. It goes to about 1st Avenue to around 30th Avenue South.
I believe through the YMCA, the library, and the Rattlers organization, has become very instrumental in helping our youth and children become very productive adults.
The Rattler program into a GAP program that's designed to engage the community, to build family and community and crime prevention by keeping the kids engaged in youth activities.
I think the emphasis for developing youth in Childs Park arises from some statistics that we received, is that Childs Park had the highest concentration of youth in the city of St. Petersburg.
What we promote is family and community. So what we're trying to instill in them with the program is that we are one big family.
Because a lot of the initiatives and things are always focused, they're heavy focused on programming, or some type of, regimen or awareness piece or a pledge or something else. And we felt that it was important to just allow them to have a space to just come and have fun.
We're solely manned by volunteers, and we let them know that too. So we want them to come back and be volunteers, so the torch is just passed on, so we all learning from one another.
They're not just focused on the athletic aspect of it, but they also focus on youth development. So they have a tutoring program that they do.
And with the YMCA, you have the Rattlers and you have the other programs that's offered. When kids get out of school, they have a place to go. They have the library there.
The STREAM Club stands for Science, Technology, Reading, Engineering, Arts, and Math. We meet every Friday afternoon at the Childs Park Library. It's kind of an extra opportunity for them to get some exposure to topics they might not know about or might have heard in school and didn't quite stick. We just give them opportunities to have different kinds of experiences and hands-on experiences at that.
The youth have a place to go and children have a place to come daily. Matter of fact, that's a great thing to help kids get off the street, have a place to go, a safe haven you might call it.
One of my brothers, when we first organized this, he said, we're helping to create their back in the day. And I think that's important because, you know, all of us have our back in the day, and I remember back in the day when we used to do that. So our responsibility as the adults now is to help create the back in the day experience for them. And what's happening today is Friday Night Done Right, an event that we created to create a safe space for children to come on Friday nights where they can be free to be kids. Sometimes you just want to remember when you went to the pool and they let you in for free, you know, and that was it. And that's why I think it's important to help create those type of memories as well.
The Childs Park neighborhood, if anyone would ask about it, I would state that it was often misunderstood.
So I'll encourage people to come and see for themselves. More to Child Park that I've seen more positive in Child Park than I have seen negative.
And my Child's Park encompasses everything that we described today, and I hope that you will gravitate towards that and balance that once you hear the other stories and the other narratives that come out about the neighborhood.
My name is Jason Hughes. I'm one of the police officers that rides the police horses. We're part of the Mounted Patrol Unit. So I ride Jacob, and I've been riding Jacob for 10 years now. We drove all the way to Boston to pick up our horses and bring them down, and we've been best buddies ever since. You get to really know the horse, and I spend more time with my horse than I do with my family. It's 40 hours a week, and probably 30 of that spent with my horse. Every interaction we have with our horses is training, either for good or for bad. We're teaching them good habits or bad habits every time we interact with them. And sometimes we have to push through groups of people to, say, get to a fight and break it up, or move a crowd out of the way to get paramedics through. And as part of that, we have a ginormous 6-foot inflatable ball that we have the horses push against. It's kind of against their nature a little bit to push into people and things. So we get them over that by making a game out of it. And they push this big, huge, giant ball to get over their fears of that. We do high visibility patrol because we really stand out and we stand 9 feet tall. It's got to be over 100 events a year where we go to large groups of people, they come interact with us, and we can see everything that's happening in the event and make sure that police presence is really felt. We also do a lot of community relations, so we do special events where we can interact with the community and build strong bonds within our community and the police department. And we also do enforcement and assist guys that are on the ground doing their jobs. I had, before my job with the police department, when I finished college, spent 2 years traveling with the Renaissance Festival doing a jousting show. My brother got me a job right out of college, and so I spent 2 years traveling the country, wearing a bunch of armor, getting knocked off a horse with a big stick. Yeah, I've had more of my time in employment's been spent with a horse involved than not at this point. Everybody loves horses. So it creates that bridge. People that might feel a little trepidatious about coming up and talking to the police, they have that easy bridge. They come over, they ask questions about the horse, they can come pet them, get a picture with them. And even today, now more than ever, those bonds between the community and the police department are vital. So we need to really build those bonds and have the community trust us, interact with us, know that we're good guys trying to help them out.
Well, there were separate facilities. It was total discrimination, really. It was just a second classness that I wouldn't want to behold, on anyone because it wasn't humane. It wasn't human.
We African Americans could not eat at the lunch counters. We could not even sit on those green benches downtown. We were not treated equally as the white citizens in this city. In 1963, I was hired on the St. Petersburg Police Department. And when I went to work at the police station, I determined that the police department wasn't totally integrated.
The locker rooms were most definitely segregated. They were put in the corner. Patrol cars that they did have were the old ones, but maybe not in very good shape.
We African American police officers were always assigned to work in the African American neighborhood only. We could only investigate complaints from citizens of color. We could only arrest citizens of color.
You know, you're trying to enforce the law and trying to get respected or be respected, and you know, you're getting disrespected by the people you're working for.
In 1965, there were 15 African American police officers on the St. Petersburg Police Department. That includes 1 sergeant, 2 detectives, and 12 uniform officers.
They wanted equal responsibilities. They wanted to be able to police white neighborhoods like Snell Isle, like the Old Northeast, and they wanted to be able to arrest a white person and take them in without having to have an assist from a white officer.
So we 12 uniform officers started having meetings among ourselves at different one of our homes to discuss the racial attitude that was against us as the police department.
And at one point, finally, I think it might have been Fred Crawford who said, "The heck with it, let's sue them. If they fire us, they fire us." And that's actually where that nickname came from, you know, the Courageous 12, because every one of those guys put their jobs on the line when they decided to sue the city.
On March 31st and April 1st of 1966, we went to federal court in Tampa, and Judge Joseph Lee ruled against us and ruled in favor of the police department in the city. That meant that we had lost the lawsuit. The NAACP agreed to file the appeal for us at no cost. On August 1st, 1968, the appeals court ruled in our favor, and we had won that lawsuit. When we won that lawsuit, we had different assignments. I'm the first African-American police officer assigned to work in an all-white neighborhood. It was 100% white. We were very proud and honored because we felt that we accomplished what our mission was set out to be. We were honored at City Hall City Council meeting on September 13, 2007. And they gave us the key to the city and a proclamation. And we really thank the city for what they did for us. I never dreamed that I would see a black chief of police here in St. Petersburg. They have one African-American chief now, and they had one previously black chief before. And it's part of what we was put that lawsuit for.
We want to make sure that when people enter our lobby now, we want to recognize the doors that you walk through are the doors that these Courageous 12 open for minorities here in the St. Petersburg Police Department.
Police department in the city put a plaque in the police station with all our names and our pictures on it, and a narrative let people know what we did to be honored.
I have put into place that every sergeant and lieutenant shall read the lawsuit, and they will be tested on it to make sure they are aware of what happened, so we make sure that never happens again.
What we did, help these young men that's come on the force now, that came on the force after.
I look around now, I see deputy chiefs, I see chiefs, I see majors. It sort of makes you feel good.
That is the first 4 African-American police officers that were hired on the St. Petersburg Police Department in 1949. That's the Courageous 12. When I see these 12 faces together as unity, we was closer, just like brotherhood, that's what I think of. I'm the last one of the Courageous 12 left. And I think about those 11 other officers that are going on, because we were brothers. We were just like brothers. We were so close. And I am going to carry the banner on for those other officers that are going on. But I tell the younger generation to stand up and for what you got and what you believe in, and stand your ground and don't back down. And think about the Courageous 12 as what we did. We stood our ground and we did not back down.
Hey guys, Ken Welch, Mayor of St. Petersburg. Now I'm with Dex Fabian, the publisher of I Love the Burgh. Thank you for being here with us on our Sunrunner tour. Tell us how this changes life in St. Petersburg.
Coming from New York, one of the things I missed was mass transit. And I think having something like the Sunrunner now actually happening in St. Pete after so long, it's a game changer. Riding it today got us from point A to point B so much faster. Don't have to worry about parking. It just makes life so much easier for locals and even tourists.
And I think it helps us to change the culture. We really don't have a transit culture here.
Yeah, so I think this is a good starting point for more developments in our mass transit system.
Thank you for being with us, Dex. We'll talk to you next time on our Sunrunner tour.
So Bobby, how has St. Pete's history influenced you as a creative, as an artist?
Well, two things. When we still lived in the one-bedroom apartment, my mother was going off to work. She worked as a domestic. She was taking the bus, and she was leaving out the door, and then she turned around and she said, "You know, Bobby," she called me Bobby. She said, and she put her hand on my face and said, "We must stay in our place." And I didn't even think I understood what she meant. I've later come to understand, she said, he's an inquisitive, investigative child, and he might get into situations he is not equipped to handle. Mm. Growing up in Southern California, it wasn't as quite precious as it was in the South, but my parents are both from the South, and all of my plays, virtually 90% of them, are set in the South, even before I ever set foot in the Southern United States. And I think history informs your granddaddy, your grandmother, your auntie, your uncle, and it informs your parents, and even if they are not from the South. So one of the things that having a creative life, Live Arts Peninsula Foundation, who presented Web City, I was doing Uncle Ben's, a home cooked Negro narrative at American Stage, and they came up to me after one of the performances and said, "We'd like you to write a musical about the Manhattan Casino." In writing that, Bill Leffingett and myself interviewed dozens of people, and I learned a lot about the city by interviewing people. Was started by Elder Jordan, and you know, there are many stories in the Naked City, and these are 6 of them. And it just started me and dovetailed with me already being interested in history and finding out the particular history of this community.
Camp Ignite is a 1 to 3 day program geared to help girls build their self-confidence and for St. Petersburg Fire Rescue to show them what we have to offer. It's going to be action-packed. They're going to get their hands dirty. They're going to be a little tired at the end of it. But when it's all said and done, they're gonna hold their head a little higher. They're gonna leave a little more confidence to go out there and get after whatever it is that's their calling.
They'll get CPR certified by me. So I have the joy in teaching them that. It's a lifetime skill. They'll still have the CPR certification and the knowledge of it to take with them for the rest of their lives.
We want to ignite. We want to empower them. We want to be proactive in reaching out to them at an early age to expose them to the possibility of being a first responder.
Exposure's huge. I didn't get into the fire service until after I started my military career. I'm embarrassed to say I really didn't know much about it. And I got into it because we had to do onboard firefighting on our ships, and that kind of led me down that path. I didn't have a program like this.
It's important for us to have female mentors to help girls be able to see what they can possibly be one day.
If you can see it, you can be it, right? So that just inspires them, like, hey, if she can do that, so can I.
This is our way of being proactive and ensuring that we have a very diverse workforce that reflects the community we serve.
We have a big mix here. We got more people coming. I think it's just important for us to look like who we work for.
We're being firefighters today. We basically trained to be a firefighter. We learned how to do things that the firefighters do.
I really like the hose because I learned how to put out a powerful water supply out of a fire hydrant.
The coolest thing I've done out here is putting out fire. The coolest thing I've done is probably walk down a tower. It's like having a ton of adrenaline go through your whole body, and then it's like you're scared, but like you know you're safe.
I think it's a cool idea, and I like how they put this together for girls to learn about firefighters and show that you can be anything you want.
I feel like it's great for me because I want to become a firefighter when I grow up, and becoming a firefighter, you get to help people, and usually when you call in, it's usually the worst day of their life, so you're there to make that better.
I think they're pretty cool. I think I would want to be a firefighter. It seems fun.
I never really thought about doing it before, but doing this actually kind of changed my mind a little bit.
Last part! Together we ignite.
Together we ignite. Together we ignite.
Together we ignite.
Together we ignite.
Together we ignite.
Together we ignite! Woo!
So a gentleman by the name of Percy Fansler had an idea of using an airplane, because back then a flight was basically just a novelty, right? So a lot of air shows and stuff like that, so that he had an idea of flying from point A to point B on a schedule, just like a train. Unheard of, but who the heck would do that? Nobody was gonna fly on a plane when you had a good old train. They arranged for Thomas Benoit and his airboat company to come to St. Petersburg. Roger and Tony Janis came with them, their chief pilot and mechanic / engineers. January 1st, 1914, they pushed that bad boy, that Benoit airboat, into the water, and 22.5 minutes later, landed in Tampa in the world's first commercial airline flight. Would you have flown in that plane?
I believe I would have. I think I would have. Wardsville, that was actually named for perhaps a businessman and his wife who was maybe for a while the postmistress in town.
They took care of everybody's mail here, and we needed a name, and we were Wardsville until, you know, the magical day where we became St. Petersburg.
And speaking of that, how did it happen?
That's a great story. If you ride the trolleys, you hear a great story about, you know, a coin flip where, you know, Peter Demenz and John Williams, who owned most of what is now downtown St. Petersburg, General John Williams, flipped a coin, right? The winner gets to name the city, loser gets to name the first hotel. Makes complete sense, right? The city is St. Petersburg, named after St. Petersburg, Russia, where Peter Demenz is from. The Detroit Hotel is our first hotel, named after Detroit, Michigan, where Williams is from. Great story, but it's not true. We needed a name. And the postmaster wanted a name. Peter Demenz had a press conference saying he was taking his train to St. Petersburg. John Williams didn't want to call it St. Petersburg. So there's all kinds of discussion. So what do you think happened after that?
I think somebody, perhaps one of the partners in that railroad enterprise, said, look, we have to name this after Peter Demenz, and so we're going to name it St. Petersburg, and you go to the post office and tell Ms. Ward that's what it's going to be. And that's probably about how it happened, as simple as that.
It's as close as it came. Water is an issue in the state of Florida. Do you know where our original water source was?
Back in the day, I believe it came from what we call Mirror Lake today. And back then, because it served as the city's reservoir, they imaginatively called it Reservoir Lake. And it supplied the city water for quite some time. And during the Spanish-American War, there would be troop deployments come over from Tampa to get water from the lake so that they could take back to the troops who were waiting to embark to Cuba.
They did. I remember seeing a newspaper article from the day the ships were leaving Tampa, and it almost became chaotic because a number of the ships that left Tampa had to come to St. Petersburg, take on water, go back to Tampa. The speedier ships wanted to leave Tampa and hurry and invade Cuba, and it became just some craziness in the middle of Tampa Bay there.
It would have been chaotic.
Very chaotic.
You know, the other day I was down close to the ballpark and I stopped at a fountain to get a drink, and a woman came up to me and said, you know, that's really the fountain of youth. You're going to turn younger. Do you have any idea what she was talking about?
Do you feel younger?
I do.
Good, it must have worked then. Our first tourist attraction here in St. Petersburg. You know, what allegedly Juan Ponce de Leon came looking for, we have here in St. Pete. A gentleman by the name of Edwin Tomlinson came to St. Petersburg and purchased a tremendous amount of land and owned actually land from 4th Street all the way down to the water, kind of where the Mahaffey Al Lang is today. He decided one day to do some drilling because he saw a natural well and he hit it, I guess it was an artisan well. And when the water came onto shore, I think the people in St. Petersburg were going to run him out of town because it smelled really bad. It was, I think, the story I read, someone equated to a dozen raw eggs being broken open in an August afternoon in Florida set on the sidewalk. I don't know who was brave enough, but someone drank it. They tasted the water and they actually felt pretty good, and it made them feel good. And before you know it, word got out. St. Pete had this reputation of being the healthiest city in the, in the nation. People were coming and filling their water jugs and drinking the water, and everybody was feeling great. And then someone finally had to test the water, and they did, and had an unbelievable amount of lithium in it.
Oh my gosh! So
what does lithium do?
That would calm you down.
Happy water, right? So of course it was, the fountain of youth. Everybody was drinking, and they were happy, and they were great. So finally, it got shut down and capped, and regular potable water came through.
Why are we drinking beer? We should have.
We should have the water from the fountain of youth. It made everybody younger again.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the Public Services and Infrastructure Committee meeting for September 12th, 2024. Could I please have a roll call?
Hanowitz.
Here.
Gertis.
Here.
Floyd.
Here.
Montanari.
Here.
Big Sanders.
Here. We have agenda before us today. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have for approval the minutes of the August 8th, 2024 meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so today we have for a presentation of the City of St. Petersburg's 2024 Community Survey. We have with us today Amy Foster, the Housing and Neighborhood Services Administrator. Through Zoom, we have, I don't know if, is Aliza on Zoom also?
Yep.
Aliza Panwar, she's a Senior Survey Associate and Statewide Project Manager at POCO, and Joseph Delolio, he's also Senior Service Associate at POCO. They worked on the survey. Before we start, I'll hand it over to administration, our City Administrator Rob Gertis, to say a couple of things about the survey.
Thank you so much, Chair. Really appreciate it. Good morning, committee members. I just want to take a few minutes to thank Amy and her team for taking the lead on working with Polco to do the survey, and I want to thank Polco for conducting the survey. I also just want to say how much the staff appreciates the mayor deciding to go forward and do the survey. You know, this isn't the kind of information that we've really had in the past. I think this is great feedback. You know, sometimes feedback, as we all know, can be a little painful in some areas, but that's good. That's the kind of information that we need to have and know so we can make ourselves better. So I think really happy that we have this baseline of information now that we can go forward, continue to do these surveys and try and grow from it. Also really happy to have, I think, almost all the administrators here today to answer any questions or to speak with you. I know Mr. Corbett's traveling, so he's not here this morning, but just so excited to have this conversation with you, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Foster and Polco.
Great, thank you. I just want to mention, Rob already mentioned that we have all the administrators here, but in preparation for this survey, we were trying to figure out when's the last time something like this had been done for the city. And I don't think we came to an exact date, but I can tell you that the last time something like this was done, it was done on a typewriter. So I think it was done in the 80s likely. So this is a long time coming. And as Administrator Gertis mentioned, you know, this is our first survey. So moving forward, we'll be able to get some more information to compare ourselves to our own baseline. But I think this will be really helpful in the budgeting process. And for all of you to know what's, you know, on the thoughts and minds of our community members. So there's some things in here that won't be of great surprise to you. People are worried about climate change and our infrastructure, our stormwater, for example. And so that won't be of any great surprise, but we're excited not only to benchmark ourselves to ourselves and see the changes as we continue to ask our residents to respond annually, but also one of the reasons we went with Polco is because we can benchmark ourselves to other like communities. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Joe from Polco.
Wonderful. Good morning to the committee. Again, my name is Joe Delolio. I'm a Senior Survey Associate here at Polco. Very much looking forward to running through our NCS survey results. Before we get started, I do want to note I'm feeling, unfortunately, just a little bit under the weather, so I apologize if my voice is a little bit grovelly, and if I pause at any time for an errant cough or probably just getting a sip of water. So I appreciate your patience with that. It's always a pleasure working with the city of St. Pete. My dad is actually a graduate of USF St. Pete, and talking to him last night, he implored me to start with a Go Bulls. Looking forward to running through these results. I do want to give a huge shout out to city staff. They were essential throughout the survey project, helping us to develop the survey as well as the implementation process. So a huge thank you to y'all for your thoughtful feedback throughout this project. Also on the call with me, I want to give a huge shout out to Alyssa Punwar, who is the main project manager for this iteration of the NCS. So thank you for all the hard work that you put into this. So a little bit about us. Polko, as Polko's online community engagement polling platform, provides information tools for local government and other public sector leaders to ensure that we're getting the voices of the residents that live within the communities that we service. We work to make civil, verified community engagement online not only possible, but accessible for all folks within the communities that we work with. NRC, or National Research Center, is the research arm of Polko and has been the premier provider of survey services to local government for the past, I usually say 25 years, but as of this year, I can say for the past 30 years, we have been the premier provider of survey services. We're best known for our national benchmarking surveys, such as the NCS, but also the employee survey, as well as the community assessment for older adults. And we do also have long-standing partnerships with a number of organizations, including National League of Cities, as well as ICMA. And before diving into results, I want to emphasize that there are a variety of ways that these results can be used. Most commonly, the jurisdictions that we work with use their survey data to monitor trends in resident opinion over time, measure government performance, and ratings of public trust, and also help inform both the budgeting process as well as strategic planning. And our results do also allow you to benchmark your results to the results and opinions given by residents in other communities across the nation, which I'll touch on a little bit more in the following slides. But really, our hope is that these findings, as presented, will spur ideas for you and what can be done with these results and where we might want to dig in a little bit deeper in the future. And the National Community Survey, or the NCS, as I'll most commonly refer to it as, is a standardized 5-page comprehensive survey that allows municipalities to assess resident opinion about their community and local government. And the NCS focuses on the livability of St. Pete by categorizing survey questions into these 10 main facets of community livability. And these are the facets that have been identified by survey researchers over a number of years as those being most impactful to residents' quality of life and those that create communities that folks want to live in. So we do ask questions directly related to these 10 facets of community livability. And then underneath each of these, they act more as an umbrella, and we ask a number of individual items within these facets to get a good comprehensive look into the overall quality of life within St. Pete. Finally, these facets we do find tend to align very well with municipal departments, making it easy for city staff to quickly find the information that's most pertinent to them, and same with directors or department heads being able to find the information that's most relevant to their area of the city. Now moving into more of the methodology that we utilized on this iteration of the NCS, all households within St. Pete were eligible to participate in the survey. A list of all households within the zip codes that serve St. Pete were purchased based on updated listings from the United States Postal Service. And then from there, we utilized the GIS boundaries provided to us by the city to geocode each of those addresses individually, ensuring that we were only looking at those that were within the defined boundaries of St. Pete. So those that fell outside those boundaries weren't considered. And then once we knew we were looking at only those addresses within, again, those defined boundaries of the city, we have a proprietary process to pull those addresses out randomly. So each address has a known probability of selection and the same probability of selection. And through that process, we randomly pulled out 5,000 addresses selected to receive the survey. Those 5,000, again, randomly selected households received mailings beginning on January 16th of this year, and the survey remained open for 7 weeks after that. And the first mailing was a postcard inviting residents of the household to participate in the survey, giving a little bit of background information into what the survey was and the timeline thereafter. And the next mailing contained a cover letter with instructions, the 5-page survey questionnaire, and a postage-paid return envelope. And it's worth noting that both postcard and cover letter included a web link to give residents the opportunity to respond to the survey online. So everyone that received both the postcard and that physical survey packet have the ability to respond online or via that physical survey, whichever they preferred. And we do include wording on those mailings that if you did respond to that first mailing, to feel free to disregard, recycle that second mailing, and that household was good to go. I do want to note as well that the survey was available in both English and Spanish. All mailings contain paragraphs in both languages instructing participants on how to complete the survey in their preferred language. So of those 5,000 households that randomly received the survey, we received back 590 completed surveys, providing a response rate of right around 12% and a margin of error of plus or minus 4%. I want to note that this is right within the range that we would expect to see for an NCS project. Actually, that total number of responses is higher than we tend to see. That is much higher than our average. So that's reflected in that margin of error, plus or minus 4%. That's a better margin of error than we tend to see on NCS projects. And that just means that, statistically speaking, those are we're a little more sure of those results. So plus or minus 4% is better than the usual 6 to 5% that we see for a margin of error. And along with this random sample survey, we did run a separate open participation survey. This is the same questions as we asked for the random sample. We just asked folks in the meeting what part of the city they reside in, and then the last question we asked how they heard about this open participation survey. But really, we open this up because we want to ensure that all voices are heard. And so anybody that wants to respond to the survey, whether they're within that random sample or not, have the opportunity to do so and share their opinions and ensure that they're being heard. It is worth saying, though, that we report primarily on those random sampled responses. So we do have a separate section of the report for those open participation responses in the final 2 tabs of the report. For that effort, we did receive nearly 2,500 responses, and again, that can be found separately in the back end of the report. I do also want to touch on here that we do statistically reweight these results. So looking back at the 2020 U.S. Census, as well as the most up-to-date American Community Survey, the ACS, we'll look back at those demographic norms, and we can consider some responses more than others to the NCS to ensure that we're getting a good representative look into the demographics that make up St. Pete as a whole. And we do that demographic reweighting for both the written sample as well as the open participation responses. Looking at our benchmarking database, one of the advantages that local government have in participating in our community surveys is the opportunity to compare ratings given by your residents and to those from other communities across the country. This is really born out of the observation that there are just some areas that generally score higher, we'll say fire-related services, and then there are just some areas that tend to score lower overall, we'll say street-related services, anecdotally. So instead of hitting fire and street together, what we can do is that we can look at the fire services ratings given by your residents to fire service ratings given by residents in other communities across the country, giving us a good, even comparison, and the same with street-related services. It actually was the first organization to conceive this idea, and we currently have more than 500 comparison communities within this database across the country, comprising the voice of over 50 million Americans. Now moving into an overview of survey results. First, I want to just take a look at who took the survey, and this is pulling out some of this demographic information. So, looking at resident age, we had the lowest response from that 18 to 24. At 4% is actually decently high for that age group. That is a very difficult group to receive responses from. From there, actually the highest percentage that we saw responses from were from 25 to 34, which again is an exceptional turnout for that age group. Generally, those who are 18 to 34 we hear very little from, so it's wonderful to see a response from some of those younger age groups. From there, it's pretty well distributed between 35 to 74, closer to that 15, 16, 17%. and then about 11% response rate from those who are 75 and older. So across the board, it's a great distribution. We do tend to see a higher percentage usually from the 55 plus categories. So great to see this number spread out across age groups. We also see a relatively decent spread throughout resident income. Less than $25,000 a year per household is about 8%. And then we see a more average distribution from there between $25,000 to $149,000 per year. This is closer to that between 14 and 20%. And then we see smaller responses from those who are within the $150,000 to $300,000 or more per household. So again, a pretty good distribution, pretty even distribution between those more middle income categories. And then from there, gender, it's pretty on par with what we tend to see, relatively similar, the same across those who identify as male, those who identify as female, with a very small percentage of those who identify in a different way. So we do ask two questions directly related to those 10 facets of community livability. First of which we ask folks to rate the quality of those 10 facets of community livability. And the layout that we see here is what we'll tend to see for the most part throughout the rest of this presentation as well as the report. We report on the percent positive. So in this scale, it's excellent, good, fair, poor. So we're just seeing the responses from excellent or good. And then we also see color-coordinated bars here to the national benchmarks. So the darkest color would be those that are higher than the national benchmark. That middle color is similar, and then the lightest would be those that are lower than the national benchmarks. And along with the quality, we do ask folks to place an importance rating on these 10 facets of community livability as well. And with that, we are able to create what I think is an aptly named quality importance gap analysis. And we use this chart, which is also included in the report. It's just one way to help determine which areas, relatively speaking, are higher in importance and lower in quality to residents. Again, this is just one of the many ways to interpret our data, and it can be used to help identify potential key areas to focus on, and potential areas that we may want to put additional focus or resource allocation in the coming years. Now moving into the national benchmark comparison, something I like to say before jumping into the actual numbers that we see here is that although I wish that all communities across the country were included in our national benchmark database, we're unfortunately just not there yet, hopefully someday. So when we're comparing St. Pete to other communities in this database, we're comparing St. Pete to other high-performing communities across the country. These are communities that want to hear from their residents, that want that engagement, and are actively using resident voice to make decisions. So just something to keep in mind as we look at these national benchmarks, that they are comparisons to other high-performing communities across the country. Now, for an individual item to be considered similar to the national benchmark, it would fall within 10 points above or below the national average. To be considered higher, it would exceed more than 10 points above that national average, and if be considered lower, it would be more than 10 points below. So we do tend to see folks or different jurisdictions that we work with falling to be relatively similar to the national benchmarks, which is good. That means that we're on par with other high-performing communities, and provides just that bit more emphasis on those areas that are falling either above or below. So with that said, we do see a large number of these items, 121 of them specifically that were provided for evaluative ratings, 97 of which were similar to the national benchmarks, 14 were higher than the national benchmarks, and 10 were lower. Let me take a quick sip of water here before moving on. And then looking at some of these items, we can see that they are spread out over multiple facets of livability. This includes economy, in recreation, as well as cultural, arts, and music activities. But generally, these areas that were higher than the benchmark are spread out across different facets. Give a quick second for y'all. I won't read through them all individually here, but just for interest, I'll give you a second to read through those. And then, along with the national benchmark comparisons, St. Petersburg also elected to compare the results to a custom subset of communities from within the national database. And this group was a mix of communities similar in size, income, and region as selected by city staff. And again, 121 different items were provided for residents to give evaluated ratings to, of which 95 were similar to these custom comparisons, 22 were higher, and 4 received lower ratings to this custom subset. And this is the list of communities that were included in this custom benchmark subset. I should note that it's just formatting that top row is bolded, so there's nothing special with that group. Those all considered the same in those comparisons. And I'll give a second again to take a look at those communities. And similar to the national benchmarks, we see here also that these items are spread out across multiple facets of livability in similar areas as well, including economy, recreation, mobility. And again, instead of reading through this visual, I'll just provide another quick second here to read through them. Wonderful. Now we'll move into the key findings subset. And moving into this area, I want to note that this is what stood out to us as survey researchers. There's a lot of additional data in the full report that we won't be able to cover today. And this presentation will just focus on a few areas that stood out to us as being the most noteworthy within St. Pete's survey results. But you all being the experts of the community, I'm sure we'll find many, many other highlights as you run through that data. But that being said, our first highlight is that residents generally feel safe in St. Pete, but continue to prioritize safety in the community. And roughly 9 to 10 residents said that they felt very or somewhat safe in the neighborhoods during the day and in the city's downtown and commercial areas during the day, both in line with national benchmark comparisons. And about 76% of folks felt safe from violent crime, while slightly lower, slightly fewer, about 67% reported feeling safe from property crime, both of which were also on par with national benchmark comparisons. However, one area of opportunity did emerge. About only half of residents reported feeling safe from fire, flood, or other natural disaster, which did rank much lower than national benchmark comparisons. And that feeling of safety does move over into sentiment towards safety-related services in St. Pete. The safety-related services received relatively strong marks from respondents, with all scoring similar to national averages. Almost 9 to 10 gave positive reviews to fire services, while about 8 to 10 favorably assessed ambulance, emergency medical services, and emergency preparedness. And a strong number still, about 7 to 10, positively scored police services, fire prevention, and education, and while right around that 6 and 10 rated crime prevention and animal control positively. Our next key finding, St. Pete's economy is a strong community feature. And we can see more of that dark green here. Those are the areas that are higher than national benchmark comparisons. About 9 in 10 residents favorably rated the city as a place to visit, as well as the vibrancy of St. Pete's downtown and commercial areas, both scoring much higher than national comparisons. Approximately 8 in 10 residents positively ranked the overall quality of business and service establishments, which was on par with those national comparisons, and a variety of business and service establishments, which again, once again, is what was higher than comparison communities. Shopping opportunities in St. Pete also scored higher than national average, with 72% of respondents offering excellent or good marks. And despite the generally positive results for St. Pete's local economy, some items related to residents' personal economic outlook and cost of living were rated less favorably than those ones that we just looked at. Economic development and employment opportunities received positive scores from just over about half of residents, about 52% and 58% respectively, which was still worth noting, similar to national benchmarks. And when asked what impact, if any, the economy would have on the family income in the next 6 months, only about 26% of residents expected that impact to be somewhat or very positive. Cost of living was also positively reviewed by only about 16% of residents, which did fall below national benchmark comparisons. Something I do want to note in this section specifically when related to not the economy as a whole, but especially the impact as well as those that are relating to cost of living. This is not uncommon from national trend, and we have seen scores trending downwards for both looking at housing to this as well, housing, cost of living, and economic outlook in nearly all communities that we've worked with in the past about year and a half. So while this is still an important metric and one that should be considered, just knowing that this is an issue that is not singular to St. Pete. This is something that we have seen in a number of communities across the nation. With that said, we'll move into our third key finding. Residents appreciate St. Pete's natural environment and recreational opportunities. And about 70% of residents gave excellent or good reviews to the overall quality of the natural environment in St. Pete. Roughly 8 in 10 offered positive evaluations in the city's air quality and water resources, with the latter scoring higher than national averages. And additionally, approximately 6 in 10 favorably rated the cleanliness of St. Pete, the preservation of natural areas, open space, recycling services, and yard waste pickup. These were similar to national averages. And then looking more specifically into parks and recreation, results related to this facet were also overwhelmingly positive, and with residents' evaluations of local recreational opportunities exceeding national averages, earning excellent or good marks from just around 84% of residents. At least 8 in 10 of respondents also favorably rated city parks. The overall quality of parks and recreation opportunities, as well as fitness opportunities, which were all in line with benchmark comparison communities. And similarly, 76% of residents positively reviewed the city's recreation centers or facilities, the recreation programs or classes in St. Pete, as well as the availability of paths and walking trails. And our fourth key finding, alternative transportation is a strength for St. Pete, but some aspects of overall mobility present a potential opportunity for growth. So we can see here that close to 7 in 10 participants indicated that they had walked or biked instead of driving within the past year, scoring similar to the national average. And additionally, nearly half reported that they had carpooled with other adults or children instead of driving alone, again within the past 12 months. 1/3 of residents used bus, rail, subway, or other public transportation instead of driving, which was higher than the national average. And about 67% of residents favorably rated the use of walking in St. Pete, in line with comparison communities. Use of travel by bicycle, which was about rated excellent or good by about half of residents, also ranked similar to the nationwide comparisons. And again, about half positively rated the use of travel by public transportation in St. Pete, scoring higher than the national average. Only about half of respondents offered positive evaluations of the overall quality of the city's transportation system, and while about 6 in 10 of respondents were pleased with the ease of travel by car in St. Pete, less favorable ratings were given to traffic flow on major streets, about 4 in 10 gave this positive marks, as well as street repair services, which received similar marks. The ease of public parking also earned positive reviews from just over 1/3 of residents, which did fall below national averages. And on the MTS, we do also provide space for any custom questions that jurisdictions that we work with would like to ask. St. Pete did ask folks to indicate how much of a source they consider certain areas to be for obtaining information about city government, activities, events, and services. And we can see the distribution of how much folks tended to use these as a source. Overall, looking primarily at those that are a major source, we see that the city website is a go-to for folks, with 61% indicating that this is a major source of information, followed closely by city social media channels. Then from there, word of mouth seems to be a major source as well, from about 42% of residents. And then we see talking with local officials, city council meetings, other public meetings, as well as local newspapers, tended to be less of a major source, but a good proportion did view it as either a major or minor source. And again, I do want to note, just looking back at the summary conclusions, that this is what stood out to us as survey researchers. We all being the experts of St. Pete, I'm sure we'll find many other highlights as we parse through this data. And I do want to note that as part of our subscription, we do have access to our Engage tool. So if there's any other areas that we want to dig into a little bit deeper or follow-up questions that we'd like to ask the community at large, you do have access to this. And along with that, we have over 600 folks within the St. Pete community that have already answered questions from the city, have given us, voluntarily given us their email and want to be notified whenever the city has additional questions to ask. So just an additional tool that we can utilize as we follow up with the survey. And along with this, we do have the track tool, as we call it. So this is a tool that pulls in data from, I think it's over 150 data points. And this can just help the city to contextualize these results with more national data, combining the resident sentiment that we just collected and putting that into the broader overview of some of these different areas, ranging from safety, economy, to parks, recreation, and natural environment. And if at all we had interest in really diving deeper into any of these areas, we do provide similar survey services to other facets, including business. We can do this with law enforcement, or if we wanted to collect information from our older adult community, this is something that we can certainly help the city with. So with that, I certainly want to stop for any questions that we've had along the way, and I'd be more than happy to go back through any of these slides to look back at that data or support any of those questions we have as they come up.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for such a thorough presentation. What I'm going to do, committee members, is first, if we have questions regarding the survey itself, we have obviously super participants, so we can be done with them, and then talk to staff about things that have to do with the city and more of the content of the survey. So just like, if you have any questions, how the survey was performed and their process and things that he would have information on, maybe we can start with that. So does anyone have any questions regarding the process of the survey? It doesn't seem like, okay, Vice Chair Gerdes.
Thank you, Chair. Joe, thank you for the presentation, appreciate it. I really have a question on process, and this is probably both for administration and for you. So as we continue and use this as the baseline, which I'm very happy to hear that we're going to do, when we do subsequent surveys, will we be able to dive deeper into some of these and get a little bit more detailed response rather than just a rating? Like when I think about like there was one about land zoning where it was a little bit lower. Are we going to be able to figure out if is that person on the side of increased density, or are they on the side of we don't want any more density, rather than just a rating?
Let me take that,
yeah,
Councilmember Gerdes. So we had a lot of debate internally as staff about the questions. So let me give you an example. One of the questions asked about animal services, which the city isn't responsible for, but we felt like it was important to get the feedback because we could provide that to the county if needed.
I'm assuming same with education.
Right. And so we had a lot of conversation in this. We ultimately decided to present the survey exactly as is, with maybe some, next to a question about electricity saying not offered by the city kind of thing, but offering the survey as is so that we could benchmark ourselves to other communities. Where I think the opportunity is that in addition to this annual survey presented as is, they have survey tools that we could go back and ask residents specific questions about some area where we want to dig deeper. So for example, billing, utility billing was an area of opportunity for us. So we could survey residents specifically on utility billing and try to dig deeper and understand, is that about Duke? Is that about your water bill? Is that about sanitation? What can we do better? And so we are meeting in October to start planning for the survey that will go out in early 2025. We'd love to hear some feedback from you, but ultimately we left the survey as is so that we could benchmark ourselves. But we do have opportunities, and there are a ton of survey tools that we can use that are within this platform that would help us dig deeper into a specific area. And so if there's something like that you're interested in, we're all ears to take that feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad we did it the way you did it originally with the baseline, because then exactly how you're saying, I just wanted to make sure it was a tool that we could use in the future. That was my question really about the process. And so I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm glad you guys did it the way it's been presented to us so far. Joe, is there anything you wanted to add before I give it up?
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to tack on there is that we do have a pretty extensive library of questions available to the city that we've asked, that have been vetted by survey researchers and asked in other communities across the country outside of the NCF. So as we go through and look at that data and decide on areas that we do want to dig in deeper, we do have those tools to push those questions out to the community at large, but then also some extensive resources to utilize questions that have already been, again, vetted. We can tailor those to St. Pete any way that we want to, or start from scratch, but I just want to reiterate that we have a multitude of resources as we go through that process.
Great. That's the only question I had about the process. Thank you, Chair.
I'd add one thing too, which is that each time you conduct the survey, you can adjust those custom questions, that those additional topics that you ask about. So you asked one this year about how much of a source different communication types were. You can adjust that going forward. You can keep it to benchmark it or to have trends, which is awesome and helpful in some cases, but you can also adjust and use that space to ask something else.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have some questions. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. I like the fact, we always are getting anecdotal evidence all the time. I mean, feedback is something that as city officials, it doesn't lack from our residents, good or bad. But it's nice to have a broader survey, because we are elected not just by our district, but citywide, actually. And so we, a lot of times, are in our own little bubbles. And it's nice to know broadly what are the big issues. And I think this addresses it. I also like the fact that how the random sample was selected. Because a lot of times you have surveys that are inundated. It's just like city council meetings. You have activists on an issue, and all of a sudden they overwhelm the issue. But you're not really getting the broader view of residents. So I liked the fact that the report was based on a random survey, and it was actually, the response rate was higher than average, which is good to know. So that's all positive. I was trying to figure out, so you have the facets of community livability that you listed. Do you all pick the facets as they're listed, like, Parks and Rec, education, arts and culture, those separation of those facets? Is that something that's just the standard in the national survey? And I am not hearing anybody say anything. You're nodding your head, so we can't hear anything.
No, sorry, just unmuted. Yeah, so when we ask those questions on the survey itself, we will lump areas that fall under a similar question together. And then from the reporting standpoint, we pull those out just to ensure that there's the greatest ease of reading that report, 100 plus page report. So separate those out as a standard into those different categories that those would fall into.
Right. So you pick the categories is my point. Like you pick, okay, education, arts, and culture, all is one category, right?
Yes, correct. And that is standard across the
Right.
NCS surveys that we conduct.
Right. That's I wanted to check that. In the facets of livability in the report, you listed Parks and Rec, education, arts, health, safety, natural environment, all the stuff that you covered here. There is also questions on quality of life and governance, but that wasn't listed in the facets of livability in the front. Is there a reason why? I'm just curious.
That's just a way that we break it out. Tend to keep the quality of life and governance just separated out. That's something that we can look at as a community, and those will stay standard. I think those have been standard across every survey that we've run for the past 30 years. We want to leave the NCS open to change or revision as time goes on to ensure that we're giving the best data back as possible. So Alyssa, feel free to jump in if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I think we've changed the structure of those 10 facets of community livability either once or twice over the past 10 years or so, just to ensure that we're capturing any changing times or changes in resident sentiment, whereas the quality of life and governance are those that have stayed a standard throughout the entire time that we've run these community benchmarking surveys.
Elisa, do you have to add anything?
Yeah, are you looking at the introduction section when you're seeing those not listed?
What I'm looking at is the report itself, and you have the facets of livability, and then you have the summary of all that, and you go these facets of livability. It's page 8, right? And so the quality importance, and then it has quality importance, all the facets of livability, and it goes down. And then you go in the next pages, and there's quality of life, there's governance, that's not included there. But then you go economy, mobility, community design, utilities, safety, natural, all the stuff that you include in facets of livability are within this analysis, but you decided somehow not to include quality of life and governments. And so I was just trying to understand the logical reason as to why you would not include that, because it seems like a pretty standard thing to include.
Yeah, that is a good point and question. I would guess, and I'll have to go back to my team around our design and kind of dig in deeper. I would guess that it's because those are more broad. So when you look at quality of life, a lot of those questions are more broad. And governance is a good one. I'm not exactly sure why we don't include that in a facet. I think it might be, I'd have to dig in a little bit deeper there. If it's the way that question, the importance and quality question is framed, and if those aren't in that question, I have to pull that up and look at it more closely.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. I'd like an answer to that. I mean, they're all broad. They're all honestly broad. I mean, economy is broad, to be clear. Not any broader than any of the other ones, and that's listed. So it would be interesting to understand that. Now, I'm curious, when you do these type of surveys, is the report itself usually published by the municipality for the residents to review it? What happens with all the data and how it's disseminated? Is it something that typically is disseminated?
Yes, that is a wonderful question. So generally we do see the jurisdictions that we work with either put the report to be publicly available on their website or by request, but more commonly online. We do have ways that we can help to put the interactive Tableau report on the website, and then also with the PDF download if folks choose to view it that way. And generally we would encourage the communities that we work with to do this, to create that, for lack of terms, more of a positive feedback loop. If folks are taking time to complete our surveys and really giving that thoughtful feedback, it's really helpful for the cities that they live in or the communities that they live in to say, hey, this is the feedback that you gave us. We want you to see how you rated us and ensure that we're utilizing this data and it wasn't all for naught. That is going to be helpful in considering
considered in our decisions moving forward.
And Councilmember, as a part of your packet, you have a infographic that we created that has been distributed to the public and is available on the website. We felt like, based on our past experience, we know that people don't read lengthy documents especially, and so we met as a cabinet and worked with marketing to distill the information and not just showcase where we shined, but also to show the areas where we have opportunity and provide that publicly.
I appreciate, and look, I think a graphic and the sheet is always helpful for those that don't want to read. I'm one of those people that actually, and I think people know this, like to see the information. Because a lot of times whatever is given to me in a short form doesn't include sometimes the things I want to look at. So part of the reason, and I know that because I get the same thing from some residents that are more curious about the questions and want to know more about government. So that's the reason where I come from it. But I understand the ease of doing an infographic, which I also like graphics, don't get me wrong. But also, I do like the fact that if we are getting feedback from the community, I think the community as a whole, especially if they were asked to participate, should actually see the data itself that was gathered. So that's all I have for now. Councilmember Floyd.
Thank you. I'm real quick. We'll ask. In a few places, it's described as like we're above the average, we're below the average. Is the average listed in here? I'm not seeing it. I just see like a rating basically, and not how much we're above or how much we're below.
So he mentioned in his overview, and I'll let Joe answer as well, but it's the above 10 points, right? And so we would have to be above 10 points to be above and below 10 points to be below.
Yeah, I got that. I just didn't know if like we actually had those numbers because, plus 10, it could be plus 10, it could be plus 25, it could be minus 10, it could be minus 25. I don't know, one. And two, just as a follow-up to that, are all 14 that were above listed somewhere and all 10 that were below listed somewhere, or do I need to go through? Because I saw that the examples you gave, about above didn't add up to 14. And so I see where I could go through and find that information myself. I just didn't know if it was listed.
Yes, that's a great question. Just for more space on the slide, we didn't include all of those 14, as you mentioned. That is in the full report. If you go to the national benchmark section, that will give an overview of all those items, and I'd be more than happy to follow up with just a list of all of those that were above and below, so you don't have to go searching for them. But to answer your question on originally, if we include those averages, that's something that is considered to be proprietary, so we don't report on the averages themselves, but we do have, if a certain item is above, below, or similar in that national benchmark section, and then we also do have percentile as well, so to show us a little more granular where we fall within that full list, we have that percentile and then rank. So we can show that 280 different communities have asked this question in the past 5 years, and St. Pete falls within X on that list, including that percentile. So a bit more granular information, but that actual average isn't included in the report.
Thank you. Yeah, I did suspect that. I wondered if it was something that you were trying to, use as your proprietary information. I see how it's broken down. I just figured I'd ask. But if y'all could follow up with just like a one-pager about above and below, I think that would be really interesting. I know that the city does have its graphic here, which I think does talk about that. This areas of opportunity looks like but again, that's not all 14 there either. I think something for like a good community conversation that I would have with people is like, here's what got ranked above average, here's what got ranked below. What do you think about this? And I could have that conversation with members of the community. That would be really nice. But that's all I have. I'd just end on saying thank you for this detailed information.
Thank you. Councilmember Montanari, and then Chair Fig-Sanders.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Joe, for the presentation. Can you mentioned in the beginning about the how the survey was done, and you talked about statistically reweighting the results. Can you give us a little more information about that?
Yes, definitely. The mic was breaking up just a little bit, so I think the question was on just talking through reweighting a little bit more. Is that correct?
Yes.
Gotcha, yes. So essentially, in every survey project, whether it's us or a different entity, that there would be some bias included. There's a number of different biases that we see within survey research. First of which is selection bias or self-selection bias. And so this is why we take that random sample approach. Like you said, that in a number of different areas, we see folks that tend to just talk more or talk louder in areas where it's available. And so by randomly selecting folks, we can ensure that we're getting a good representative view of folks within the community overall, which is wonderful on the front end. The only thing is that you can't make people respond. And so in some ways, we would have what we refer to as non-response bias. Still, with this process, we get the best representative we can with a sample. But just knowing that there are some areas that within the community that we tend to hear from less and may not respond to at a level that we would expect looking at those demographic breakdowns. And there's a couple ways that we can utilize this data to ensure that we're getting that good representative view. So first of which is that we utilize a ratio of 5:3 of single-family to multifamily units within our sample. We know that we tend to hear from those who are in single-family homes more than those that are in multifamily homes or apartments. So that helps us, again, on that front end to hear from a greater proportion of those that we just wouldn't tend to hear from as much. And then, again, getting to that back end, that non-response bias, what we can do is that we look at all of these demographics individually. Folks self-report those on the survey. And then we can look back. What we utilize is the 2020 U.S. Census and the most up-to-date American Community Survey. And those gives us those demographic norms for each individual area. So this could be race and ethnicity, it could be housing type, it could be age, gender. We look back at all of these areas. And then from there, and there is a weighting table in the report that shows us, how much we've affected this data. But if each individual person is considered as one, and we're adding those all up, what we can do is, depending on the different demographic groups that they fall into, and those demographic groups that we haven't heard from as much, or those that are overrepresented in this response, is that we can consider that number either a little bit above 1 or a little bit below 1, and change that data just slightly to ensure that we're getting a good representative view of each demographic group that we'd expect to see within St. Pete. Now, I do want to say that these changes are relatively slight. And so if we see in the report, in that weighting table, there might be a group that, according to the census, that group makes up, let's say, 18% of the population, and we've heard from 11% realistically back from those responses organically from the report. What we'll do is that we will work to get as close to that 18% demographic norm without manipulating the data. So there are some areas that we might see that reweighted number the same as that demographic norm, and there might be some areas that it still falls slightly below that demographic norm, but is much closer to what we would expect to see. So that's a very, I'd say, a survey researcher pedantic answer. We tend to go on and on when it comes to statistics and things of that nature, but if I were to distill it down, it's being able to utilize that data, look at those norms, and get closer to those demographic distributions that we would expect to see according to the census.
Well, thank you. That was a little bit more than I was asking.
When you get a survey research to the research for the demographics and the statistics, we have to
Yeah.
we have to rein ourselves in.
You're dealing with a bunch of elected officials that know a little bit about polling, so it's just kind of want to know how accurate the numbers are. That's kind of where I'm coming from. So there were two areas that kind of jumped out at me, and there are two areas that we're very familiar with here in St. Petersburg. One's the cost of living, and the other is affordable housing. And in this infographic, it talks about, it gives the numbers. And there's another area that was not on this infographic that was built, but it was ease of parking, and it's on page 12, but 35% of the respondents said that that's a problem in the city of St. Petersburg.
It's on the infographic.
Oh, okay.
Area of
I
opportunity.
missed it. Can you talk a little bit about those numbers? And I don't know if that's staff or
I mean, we can certainly have Joe answer whether they're higher, lower, or similar, but I think that is an area that stood out to us as well. And we don't have James here, unfortunately, but we do recognize that parking is a challenge. And if you look at the infographic, there's a few bullets about what we'll be doing to help address parking, like adding parking spots to the Edge District and things of that nature.
Yeah, I'll add a couple things to that. One, I thought Joe's comments about the average on affordability is in flux right now, and I don't mean to speak for you, Joe, if you want to chime in, but that it's kind of going through a process over the past 18 months to 2 years where that nationwide comparison is trending down. So, I think that we would expect that. We obviously know that affordability is an issue, and I think it's interesting for us to think about how does that impact our citizens. It might not just be housing. You've got some utility scores that we need to look at. Could that be related to utility costs? Are there other costs? Ad valorem property tax costs. Affordability is kind of a broad range of things to look at. So I think that's one thing. On the parking, I think it's very interesting. I think City Council has been having a philosophical discussion about parking. I think this, obviously informs that discussion. I see it two different ways. Some of the most attractive places in America are very difficult to park in, right? So, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is we want to guarantee that people can come down and have easy access to parking and participate in the downtown. Those are philosophical discussions, and City Council is engaged in those discussions right now. We had a really good discussion about kind of, I'll say, quote unquote, experimenting, in the TOD district with maybe a zero parking requirement. That still has to be voted on City Council, and part of it's quasi-judicial, so I won't go into it too deeply, but that was an interesting discussion. So I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
Councilmember Montanari, I did find my notes on this, I'm sorry. 900 public parking spaces are planned or under construction in the Edge District and downtown. Also, as you know, parking garages are planned for the historic gas plant district. A parking study update was planned for fiscal year 25 and is in the budget. That will yield data and recommendations to improve the ease of public parking. And the Complete Streets plan is slated for an update in 2025 and is funded by a successful grant application by the Department of Transportation. So those were some of the things that staff is planning to address the lower score on that area.
Okay, thank you for that. And I read that in the report. And let me just close by saying, and I asked the question about how this data was re-weighted, because in the infographic, the areas of opportunity, only 2 of the 10 areas were above 50%. And I'm very proud to be an elected official in the city of St. Petersburg, because I think we as a city operate at a very high level, very responsive government. My family moved here in 1976, and it's always been like that. And so I expected some of these numbers to be, above, the national benchmarks. A lot more of the numbers being above the benchmark. So that's why I kind of went into or asked the question about reweighting the results. I expected these numbers to be higher.
Thank you. And I don't think, Joe, did you, in terms of the ease of parking question that Councilmember Montanari had, could you just talk a little bit about where we're at? Is it higher or lower or similar, where it stands in terms of other communities?
I have that up, Joe. Do you have it? Okay.
No, I was going to defer to you. Thanks, Alyssa.
Yeah, I have it up. It is lower than national benchmark comparisons. So not much lower, which I think, Joe, much lower would be 20 plus points off. So lower means between 10 and 20 off from the national. Lower.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Do you have anything else on that? Okay, thank you. Chair Fix-Andrews.
Thank you, and thank you again for the report. My first question was already answered when I wanted to find out how deep we can actually dive into some of these questions to get some of the responses. But I automatically go back to, and thank you, Administrator Foster, for saying it's been such a long time since we've had this, but we've had a lot of studies. And I kind of wanted to know, in our planning, how are we going to correlate what we're finding out now from this particular survey with what we know from our disparity study, what we know from other studies that we've already done out there that we say are priorities for our city? So how are we going to integrate that? Because what I don't want to see us happen is us to formulate these gaps again. So when we identify priorities based on the disparity study, based on, and another question, the zip codes, when I talk about disparity study, how do we choose those 5,000 random samples?
So we can let Joe talk about that, but let me just talk about our perspective a little bit on the survey. So this is a data point, among many different data points, right? And it's something to consider. This is not the end all be all that's going to guide every policy decision that we make. It's additional information, right? And so our mayor has a vision for the city, our city council members have a vision for the city, and kind of the third piece of that triangle is the residents, right? And we take all that information and all the other studies that we have, and we all try to work together to come forward with our priorities in the best way forward. So I just want to be clear about that we're not going to suddenly take this survey and say, well, everything is about this. It's an additional data point. And I think a lot of it, we're surprised by some of it. We're not surprised by other parts of it, right? They line up with some of our priorities related to stormwater and flooding, related to customer service around utilities, but there is some also insightful, I think, very insightful information. I was personally pleasantly surprised by the mobility scores. I think they were much higher than what I might imagine, and the ease of public transportation. And so there's some really good information here. But to get to the core of your question, this is one additional data point for us to look at.
Councilmember, let me mention that we were allowed to pick the timing, right? And so we picked the timing specific so that we as administrators would have this information, and we provided it to you as soon as we had the report as well before the budget was fully formed, so that we could take some of this information along with, as Administrator Gertis mentioned, all the other data points we have and consider it in our budget and planning process. And so that is why we will continue to do this survey very early in the year, so that we have those results early enough to consider that in the budgeting process. As it relates to the zip codes that were used were all city zip codes, right? So there weren't specific zip codes in the city picked. It was all of the city zip codes. They used a GIS map. And we're able, so if a zip code falls in the city in, say, Gulfport or Lealman or whatever, they were able to determine that using mapping process and the geocodes.
Okay, and thank you for that. And you know, for the clarification, it being a data point, I didn't think that it would reroute any and everything that we were doing, but that's why I wanted to find out how we utilize it to correlate it, because we're going to try to do this, no, not try, we're going to do this survey annually. Is this something that you decided to? We're going to do it annually. And the reason why I asked for the zip code is because when we talk about public safety, for example, the percentage of feeling safe looks really good, depending on your zip code. So that's why I was asking about the zip codes. How thorough were the samples? And when you say random samples, it may have been a city of St. Petersburg zip code, but where? You know, there are certain zip codes that have a very high public safety rating. Then there are others that don't. So I just wanted to see how that may have.
Yeah, Councilmember Joe can answer more about that. So Joe, can you explain a little bit more about, you looked at our ACS data from the census to understand what percentage of our city is African American, Latinx, white, et cetera. And a part of the statistically significant sample is choosing folks in. So can you describe that so council members understand how that statistically significant sample worked exactly?
Yes, definitely. So when we pull out this sample randomly, what we do that is that allows us to get a representative view of the community overall. So by pulling folks out randomly, or those addresses out randomly, that allows us to proportionally have a similar percentage breakdown of the different demographics that we tend to see. Different areas would be represented proportionally to how they're distributed across the city, so on and so forth. And if we have, excuse me, and then we also do that re-rating, so with that non-response bias, we can get, again, proportionally those representative looks at those demographic groups on the back end. Give me 1 second, I'm just going to clear my throat. And certainly these demographic breakdowns are an area of interest, and I think an exceptional tool to have a broader understanding or more granular understanding of this data. And we do provide demographic crosstabs within the report. So if we wanted to see how these different demographic groups responded to each of these 121 individual survey items, that is something that we can look at that can be viewed by anyone in the report. And that would give that breakdown by housing type, race or ethnicity, gender, so on and so forth. And we do provide, since there's a different number of folks included in each of those groups, there is a different statistical significance level, just to know what would be considered different from other respondent groups. So all of that information is in the demographic crosstabs included in the report.
And Councilmember, in the actual, in your PSNI packet, I'm going to give you a page number, page 13, you can see how many people from each district took it. So we were able to use the map and geocodes to make sure that we didn't focus on one district over another. You'll also see the weighted and the unweighted, and then what the target is related to our census data. And so that's how the weighting comes in. And so if you want to dig deeper into that, that particular information starts on page 13 of your packet.
Okay, I'm looking at 13. Because what I did was, and thank you for that, I did go to look at the percentages of the breakdown and went to the demographics of the city of St. Petersburg, and they pretty much match with what they have in here. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose focus on the diversity piece of it. So I do appreciate that. And thank you, Joe, for that explanation. Thank you.
And we did, I will just share with you that as a cabinet, this was something that was very important to the Office of Equity. And we spent a lot of time in our time with Polco understanding the crosstabs and then analyzing the data and looking at it in that way so we can identify where there's disparities, council member. I know that was something that was particularly of interest to Carl and all of cabinet. We looked at it as this, you pointed out safety and police. And so that was one of the things that we had some conversations about as administration as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. These have all been really good questions. It just kind of shows that the survey, I mean, we're basically touching upon the surface, but there's a lot of information there that's going to be helpful on a lot of subjects. I'm glad, Administrator Foster, that you mentioned it's page 4 of the report where it talks about the analyzing the data, and you can go there and see the areas. You did separate everything in districts, and it's weighted pretty evenly throughout our city. Now, I'm curious, Joe, is it possible to get the survey results specifically for those areas if we wanted to?
I can jump in there. So that's part of the cross-tabulations that we have.
Right.
So that's not in the PDF version of the report, but in our online version of the report on Tableau, there's interactive cross-tabs where you can look at differences in response between all of the districts.
Okay.
And it will also let you know on a separate tab what the statistical significance indicators are for those. And they're also labeled by letters. There's a little bit of, it takes a little practice to look at it because the letters kind of indicate the statistical significant differences. But yeah, that does exist.
That's in there.
District and other demographics.
Is that something that we have access to?
I don't remember if it was included in your original email or not.
We don't have that.
If you don't have it, we'll get it to you.
That would be great, because I think a lot of the questions that council members have, that's going to be probably helpful. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Just housekeeping, we are at, the meeting finishes at 10:50. We have another 15 minutes for questions, and we could probably go a little over if we needed to, but then we have a Housing and Land Use Transportation Committee. No, hold on. 10:40. We only have 5 minutes.
Yeah, because
And we have a pretty full HLUT agenda.
And we only have 5 minutes. So, okay. So, Joe, I think we're probably done with those questions regarding the survey. Do you have any questions for staff? We covered a lot. Councilmember Montanari.
I have a follow-up on your facets of livability question, if we have time.
I'm sorry, you have on the mobility?
The facets of livability that you have.
Oh, you have. Yes. If you have something quick.
Yes, it's very quick. I looked into it. The reason that governance and quality of life are not included is the questions that we use to pull that data from. So I don't know if you have the survey in front of you, but we use question 2 and 12 to ask about quality and importance of those topics. And those questions don't ask about quality of governance or quality of life. We use other questions on the survey to kind of populate those sections of the report.
Okay.
But that's why they aren't there.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay, council members, any additional questions? Councilmember Floyd, and then Councilmember, I'm sorry, I said Councilmember Montanari first, and then Councilmember Floyd.
I just have just an observation. You all, Administrator Gertis and Foster, you talking about this in a cabinet meeting. I don't see any police or fire representatives in the room, and it was addressed. I'm sure they were there at the cabinet.
Yes, they were involved, and if there's specific questions about those findings, we could certainly have them come back at a future date or address it in the city council.
No, I'm just I was glad to see the responses of the survey to both those departments. Thank you.
Councilmember Floyd.
Thank you. My question might be ridiculous, but I figured I'd ask it. I see all the results. They have, I assume that they're the weighted results. I just wondered if there was like a brief summary or maybe just a little bit of information about what the results were when they were unweighted. I don't know if that's a thing that you would normally provide. I don't know if it's appropriate, but I just wondered what the people who took it and like went out of their way to take it thought. I think that would be a little insightful.
Yeah, but it's definitely not a ridiculous question at all. That is something that I will definitely check back with our data science team on. Generally, we do report only on the weighted results, so if it's all right, I'd like to follow up on that one.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I appreciate that. You know, I was just wondering like what the like set of people who felt compelled to respond felt like themselves, because I think that's insightful as to you know, a more engaged citizenry than the weighted, which I think is great and obviously the correct thing to present to us. I just wondered if I could grab any of that. So anything you can provide, or if not, it's fine. I just figured I'd ask. Thank you. Thanks.
Vice Chair Gertis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two quick comments, and then I guess a question. I thought one of the really interesting things about this is when you looked at the engagement of whether or not somebody has been in contact with the city in some shape, form, or fashion over the last 12 months. I just felt like that was a really interesting question that showed me that the people that responded to this are engaged in our city. And so when I think about like weighted and unweighted, it really was very clear to me that those who responded knew the city well. They weren't just shooting in the dark. And so I just thought that was interesting. And then just one other point, I know we talked about it a little bit, but everybody is going to have their, their, for lack of a better word, complaint about what needs to be changed and what needs to be better. But overall, I felt very good about how people thought about the city and their view of the city and whether they would recommend it to somebody or whether they were going to continue to live here or not. I thought those were all positive things that I just, I wanted to say out loud. I would love to have some feedback on how this goes, like, back out. And so I know we're not going to do that right here. So I don't know, Chair, if we could keep this on the referral list so we could have that conversation at some point. Do you know when do we need to have that back for you?
To start planning for the next survey.
Okay.
So, it would be helpful to come back to the next meeting. I did want to let you know I re-forwarded the email. You do have access to the Tableau. You also have accounts to our Polko account so that you can get in the back end and play with it. If you have not set up your account yet, and you have any issues with that, Susie has administrative access and can assist you. So feel free to play around. Polko actually created a video for you, which is in the email you received, that shows you how to navigate Tableau so that you're able to dig into the data. And I've linked that video in the email as well.
Thank you. So that would be my request, Chair. I mean, obviously at your discretion, but would obviously love to have that. And then just one more thank you to staff. Just very, very glad we did this. And this is a great data point for those nerds of us that like looking at tabs and percentages. So just very thankful.
Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. No, we'll keep it on the referral list and have an update on what we're doing, obviously, in terms of the survey and how we're responding to it. I have to say, I have to commend, obviously, administration and Administrator Foster for taking the lead on this and doing this. I mean, we all have strengths and weaknesses. And this report, and every city does, individuals do, and this is a very comprehensive way of looking at the city, seeing places where we're doing great work, seeing places where we have to improve, and it is another data point that we can access and look at and see how we can best provide our services to our community. So I think this is fantastic. With that being said, thank you, Joe. And Elisa, for your work. If you need our information and contact information for those follow-up questions, I'm sure they can give it to you, so you can email us with that information. But at this point, I will be adjourning the Public Services and Infrastructure Committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Alyssa.
We're adjourned, Bruno.
Thank you all.
little things that may go wrong. When I come to work, the first thing I do is I blow the sand, leaves off the deck, kind of clean it up over there. And then after all that's said and done, go down to the beach, make sure everything's all picked up over there, rake the area, make sure it's nice and clean. It's the start of my day. I really do enjoy my job. I get to hang out at the beach all day, meet some interesting people. It's cool. I've had a couple of people come up and they didn't realize this was owned by the city of St. Pete, so we kind of give them the story about it. Mayor John Brown donated this property to the city of St. Pete, and it was basically for the residents, for their families to come to enjoy the amenities that we had here, like the restrooms, the indoor showers, playgrounds. So he donated that to the community. Today's a beautiful day. I love feeling the wind. I love looking at the water when I drive around. It's kind of peaceful. It's kind of like I'm just by myself, getting the job done, but it doesn't feel like work. I like the freedom. I like being out by the water. It's always a beautiful day, and it's something a lot of people don't get to do.
Hey guys, Ken Welch here again on our Sunrunner Tour. Today I'm with Catherine Woods, who was the artist that did so much of the work that you'll see at the stops. Thank you for joining us, Catherine.
Oh, my pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about what the art means.
Absolutely. Since St. Pete is such a mural city, if you took all the glasses out of all the shelters and put them together, it kind of looks like a mural, a continuous mural. If you take the glasses and where they are at all the 16 stops, they all relate to the neighborhood. So it's like the welcoming front porch to the community in the neighborhood that it's in.
What's the message you want to convey to folks who might be from out of town that see that?
I just want them to feel the joy of St. Petersburg. The colors are joyful, the way the sun comes through it's a very happy thing, and I just want them to feel that.
And what drew you to this project in the first place? How'd you become
Oh my gosh,
involved?
how could you say no to that big canvas? There's 2 glasses per station, and each one is 5 foot by 7 foot, 16 stations, so that's a lot of glass, and that's a lot of chance to get a message across and do a lot of beautiful color.
Well, thank you. It's beautiful art.
My pleasure.
And it tells the story of St. Petersburg.
It does.
Thank you, Catherine.
My pleasure.
Today is another great partnership to bring affordable housing to our community. This will be the Ed White development under the St. Pete Housing Authority. We'll also have a medical component with Everell Health, and the county as well as the city are partners in this development, and it will provide housing for 71 seniors in our community.
It's going to be for our elders, those that has been a foundation for our city and who need us to now lend that hand and to take care of them, which is what I am just so grateful that our commitment to our senior communities have been for the focus of this project.
The community at large will benefit from this project. We will be serving 71 of their senior families. The residents, they will benefit because they will have affordable housing and healthcare services.
This project's location is great, not only because it's central and it's going to move services closer to people that need them, but because of the history of this area of the city and the city as a whole.
Well, as you know, one of our pillars for progress is housing affordability. It's a part of the way that we make St. Pete accessible to everyone. In this case, want to live their senior years in our city in a great environment. That keeps St. Pete accessible to everybody.
1, 2, 3!
This is our first City Hall on tour for 2024. We're here at Pinellas Technical College, and it's an opportunity for the community to talk to any of our departments, from sanitation to codes to law enforcement, police, or fire, about our community, about their recommendations, their concerns, and get feedback on the spot.
Community folks who are where you're at. The City Hall on Tour is designed to put you in spaces where people live in real time.
It's also a focus on education and career paths, and that's why we're here at Pinellas Technical College. They're a great partner with us. You heard about the Mayor's Future Ready Academy, where we have 12 young people who are going through on-the-job training in various city departments like sanitation and public works.
For our Future Ready Academy, we really consist of like going through each department through the city and then learning new experiences through each department and what each department consists of. So you kind of get a win-win in each opportunity. So it's kind of a lot through each department. You get to learn a lot.
We look at the city of St. Petersburg, from the historic gas plant to all of the housing developments that are going on, corridor development. Most of those are driven by the trades. Plumbers, electricians, craftsmen of all kinds.
It's also a focus this year on careers and getting folks connected to career paths. We try to have these around the city. We had 4 last year. This year we'll have 3 and another one dedicated to youth. That's how we all move forward together.
On the road, there are no second chances. When you're behind the wheel, nothing is more important than staying focused on the road. Your life and the lives of others are at risk. Put the phone away. It can wait. Don't drive distracted.
Well, there were separate facilities. It was total discrimination, really. It was just a second classness that I wouldn't want to behold be on anyone, because it wasn't humane. It wasn't human.
We African Americans could not eat at the lunch counters. We could not even sit on those green benches downtown. We were not treated equally as the white citizens in this city. In 1963, I was hired on the St. Petersburg Police Department. And when I went to work at the police station, I determined that the police department wasn't totally integrated.
The locker rooms were most definitely segregated. They were put in the corner. Patrol cars that they did have where the old ones, maybe not in very good shape.
We African American police officers were always assigned to work in the African American neighborhood only. We could only investigate complaints from citizens of color. We could only arrest citizens of color.
You know, you're trying to enforce the law and trying to get respected or be respected. And, you know, you're getting disrespected by the people you're working for.
In 1965, there were 15 African American police officers on the St. Petersburg Police Department. That includes 1 sergeant, 2 detectives, and 12 uniform officers.
They wanted equal responsibilities. They wanted to be able to police white neighborhoods like Snell Isle, like the Old Northeast, and they wanted to be able to arrest a white person and take them in without having to have an assist from a white officer.
So we 12 uniform officers started having meetings among ourselves at different one of our homes to discuss the racial attitude that was against us as the police department.
And at one point, finally, I think it might have been Fred Crawford who said, "The heck with it, let's sue them. If they fire us, they fire us." And that's actually where that nickname came from, you know, the Courageous 12, because every one of those guys put their jobs on the line when they decided to sue the city.
On March 31st and April 1st of 1966, we went to federal court in Tampa, and Judge Joseph Lee ruled against us and ruled in favor of the police department in the city. That meant that we had lost the lawsuit. So the NAACP agreed to file the appeal for us at no cost. On August 1st, 1968, the appeals court ruled in our favor, and we had won that lawsuit. When we won that lawsuit, we had different assignments. I'm the first African-American police officer assigned to work in an all-white neighborhood. It was 100% white. We were very proud and honored because we felt that we accomplished what our mission was set out to be. We were honored at City Hall City Council meeting on September 13, 2007. And they gave us the key to the city and a proclamation. And we really thank the city for what they did for us. I never dreamed that I would see a black chief of police here in St. Petersburg. They have 1 African-American chief now, and they had 1 previously black chief before. And it's part of what we was put that lawsuit for.
We want to make sure that when people enter our lobby now, we want to recognize the doors that you walk through are the doors that these Courageous 12 open for minorities here in the St. Petersburg Police Department.
Police department in the city put a plaque in the police station with all our names and our pictures on it, and a narrative let people know what we did to be honored.
I have put into place that every sergeant and lieutenant shall read the lawsuit, and they will be tested on it to make sure they are aware of what happened, so we make sure that never happens again.
What we did, help these young men that's come on the force now, that came on the force after.
I look around now, I see deputy chiefs, I see chiefs, I see majors. It sort of makes you feel good.
That is the first 4 African-American police officers that were hired on the St. Petersburg Police Department in 1949. That's the Courageous 12. When I see these 12 faces together as unity, we was closer, just like brotherhood, that's what I think of. I'm the last one of the Courageous 12 left. And I think about those 11 other officers that are going on, because we were brothers. We were just like brothers. We were so close. And I am going to carry the banner on for those other officers that are going on. But I tell the younger generation to stand up and for what you got and what you believe in. and stand your ground and don't back down. And think about the Courageous 12 as what we did. We stood our ground and we did not back down.
I look at Woodlawn as probably the most neighbor-friendly, kid-friendly neighborhood that I've ever lived in. It's a wonderful neighborhood to grow up in. I wish I was a kid growing up in this neighborhood.
It's a real family-oriented community, super close to downtown, and it's just kind of one of those picturesque, nice, quaint little neighborhoods.
I think what was really cool about the neighborhood is it's different compared to a lot of the other neighborhoods where part of it is on a circle. So as soon as we drove in on the neighborhood looking for a house, I just knew that this neighborhood had kind of some extra character to it.
Woodlawn has got a circular style to it, design to it, and you can see from some of these old pictures that there really is a circle or an oval to Woodlawn neighborhood.
My favorite part of the day is driving home. You turn onto our street from MLK and there's beautiful oak trees, blooming crepe myrtles, and then there's a park. We have a park just at the end of our street. So here in Woodlawn, we have 3 public parks within our community.
We use those parks a lot for our garage sale in the fall. There's cookouts that go on in those neighborhood parks, and they become very handy.
And that's where we have all of the holiday events, all of our neighborhood events, potlucks, things like that. But then on the weekends, you can just kind of go out there and hang out. So I've worked out in the park, take my dog to the park. There's a basketball hoop for the neighborhood kids to hang out. Got it!
As the fall and into the winter and into the holiday season, every one of those little pocket parks gets used for certain events.
Christmas caroling going on during Christmas. There's an Easter egg hunt through the neighborhood. Halloween is huge in this neighborhood.
And then Halloween, you forget about it. It is crazy around here.
Woodlawn likes to party.
So, like everything, trees come and go, and a lot of the trees in this neighborhood are laurel oaks, and they've got a time period of about 70 years in their lifespan. And we realized early on that the trees in this neighborhood were going to go away. What we did several years ago as part of a grant is got additional oak trees planted in several of those quadrant parks just to give a little shade so it's not as hot during the summer. And I would guarantee that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, the folks that are living here in these houses will be looking at those trees, wondering who planted them, and gosh darn it, they got to be getting old. Maybe we need to think about putting some new ones in.
There's so many generations of families here, old houses, new houses, young families, families that have been here for 20 years. But amidst all that, it's just a really cool community feel.
When we saw this house, as scary as it was, we knew it was the house just based on coming into the neighborhood and feeling so welcomed.
And the other interesting thing is about the folks that live in Woodlawn, the majority of them are very passionate about living here.
It's just a very outgoing and nice community.
So the one thing that I would like to lift up and make sure that everybody hears is that there's two Child's Parks. There's the Child's Park that you hear about and that you read about, but then there's my Child's Park. The parameters of Child's Park include 34th Street South to 49th Street, and then 18th Avenue to 5th Avenue South. And that's the Child's Park neighborhood, but the greater Child's Park area actually covers about 3 neighborhoods. It goes to about 1st Avenue to around 30th Avenue South.
I believe through the YMCA, the library, and the Rattlers organization has become very instrumental in helping our youth and children become very productive adults.
The Rattler program is a GAP program that's designed to engage the community, to build family and community and crime prevention by keeping the kids engaged in youth activities.
I think the emphasis for developing youth in Child's Park arises from some statistics that we received, is that Child's Park had the highest concentration of youth in the city of St. Petersburg.
What we promote is family and community. So what we're trying to instill in them with the program is that we are one big family.
Because a lot of the initiatives and things are always they're heavy focused on programming, or some type of, regimen or awareness piece or a pledge or something else. And we felt that it was important to just allow them to have a space to just come and have fun.
We're solely manned by volunteers, and we let them know that too. So we want them to come back and be volunteers, so the torch is just passed on, so we all learning from one another.
They're not just focused on the athletic aspect of it, but they also focus on youth development. So they have a tutoring program that they do.
And with the YMCA, you have the Rattlers and you have the other programs that's offered. When kids get out of school, they have a place to go. They have the library there.
The STREAM Club stands for Science, Technology, Reading, Engineering, Arts, and Math. We meet every Friday afternoon at the Child's Park Library. It's kind of an extra opportunity for them to get some exposure to topics they might not know about or might have heard in school and didn't quite stick. We just give them opportunities to have different kinds of experiences and hands-on experiences at that.
The youth have a place to go and children have a place to come daily. Matter of fact, that's a great thing to help kids get off the street, have a place to go, a safe haven you might call it.
One of my brothers, when we first organized this, he said, we're helping to create their back in the day. And I think that's important because, all of us have our back in the day, and I remember back in the day when we used to do that. So our responsibility as the adults now is to help create the back in the day experience for them. And what's happening today is Friday Night Done Right, an event that we created to create a safe space for children to come on Friday nights where they can be free to be kids. Sometimes you just want to remember when you went to the pool and they let you in for free, and that was it. And that's why I think it's important to help create those type of memories as well.
The Child's Park neighborhood, if anyone would ask about it, I would state that it was often misunderstood.
So I'll encourage people to come and see for themselves. There's more to Child Park that I've seen more positive in Child Park than I have seen negative.
And my Child's Park encompasses everything that we described today, and I hope that you will gravitate towards that and balance that once you hear the other stories and the other narratives that come out about the neighborhood.
Food has always been a passion of mine. My passion from food comes from my grandfather. It was really just born out of the fact that I believe that he wanted to show us the world, and he did that through everyone's different cuisines. So like we would have really elaborate holiday parties, and we would have like Thanksgivings would be all designated toward like a different country, and he wanted to introduce us to that country, and it was through their food. So one of the things, we had a Japanese spread. I was not vegan at that point, but just the art of the cuisine, I was able to like eat with my eyes, and it just made me fall in love with sushi. When I went vegan, I realized I couldn't have sushi anymore. So it kind of started with a cookbook, and I did a pop-up, and then we were sold out, and then I kind of just went from there. I just did pop-ups, markets, and festivals, and I started delivering sushi to people's houses, and it kind of just caught on. I thought to myself, it would be nice to have a place, like a home base, for everyone to come to me, and then also, again, give vegans the experience of what sushi is. Being in St. Pete, I feel like everything is happening on Central. I feel like Central is where a lot of businesses want to be. On a normal day, we would go through 4 pots of rice, and that was like a great day. And now coming to the new space, like we're going through like 8, 9, 10 pots of rice in one night, which is like, for us, is crazy.
Campbell Park is a beautiful community. It is rich with culture.
All right, Campbell Park is located right across the street from Tropicana Field, where the Tampa Bay Rays play. Right across the highway, you got an overpass right here that you can walk over. It's right down the street from the local skate shop, Anchor. It's in a pretty dope location, honestly.
What I think is unique about Campbell Park is you can have a yard, you can have green space, you have this beautiful park across the street, and then you just go a little further and now you're into the density of downtown, which is really exciting to have an actual residential corridor with yards so close to a really booming downtown area.
We are one of the more accessible communities when it comes to traveling, as far as going downtown, interstate travel, any of our shopping centers. This is the perfect place to be when it comes to all of those things.
You can skate anywhere in St. Pete just using the trail, and you can just hop off the trail, walk across the Trop, and then hop right over the highway and you're here, and you can just shred. It's a dope park.
I love taking my dog for walks into the skate park. I love going there and seeing all the energy of everyone using the skate park.
The skate park has brought an environment for diversity, and so our children are able to attend the skate park and have a safe place to skate without being on our roadways.
I definitely think that the skate park is going to help change some kids' lives out here, for sure.
I live right across the street, so I just come right across the street, come skate, blow off some steam, have some fun. That's what it's all about, like having fun. That's what I say skateboarding.
Back in the day, growing up skateboarding, skateboarders and BMX bikers never got along. To see BMX bikers and skateboarders getting along so well together in a skate park is really transformative, because if BMXers and skateboarders can be in harmony, then everyone can be in harmony together.
Nobody's gonna be like, oh, you're too short to do this, you're too tall to do this, It's more of a, you just come here and you get to do what you do, self-express yourself through the park.
Definitely, since the skate park's been built, there's been a lot of more little kids like on their sidewalk, like practicing how to skate. You see kids riding down the street on the way to the skate park. Since I've lived here, like a lot of the areas have been cleaning up, you know, moving towards a more positive direction.
Everyone has kind of come together and worked hand in hand in improving things for everybody. Something where you create positive activity throughout the day has such a spillover effect on pushing out crime, which has been amazing.
All walks of life can come here. Like skateboarding is one of those things that's just like, it doesn't care what color you are or how much money you have. Like if you have some wheels, a board, and some shoes, like you're part of the crew, you know, like you can shred. Everybody's welcome.
The neighborhood has changed over the years. It was beautiful when I was a child, but it's beautiful now that I'm an adult. I'm blessed to have been able to see all of those changes over my 46 years here in the neighborhood.
Water is an issue in the state of Florida. Do you know where our original water source was?
Back in the day, I believe it came from what we call Mirror Lake today. And back then, because it served as the city's reservoir, they imaginatively called it Reservoir Lake. And it supplied the city water for quite some time. And during the Spanish-American War, there would be troop deployments come over from Tampa to get water from the lake so that they could take back to the troops who were waiting to embark to Cuba.
They did. I remember seeing a newspaper article from the day the ships were leaving Tampa, and it almost became chaotic because a number of the ships that left Tampa had to come to St. Petersburg, take on water, go back to Tampa. The speedier ships wanted to leave Tampa and hurry and invade Cuba, and it became just some craziness in the middle of Tampa Bay there.
It would have been chaotic.
Very chaotic.
Hi, St. Pete. Mayor Ken Welch here, coming to you with an important message about voting. The right to vote is precious. It allows you to hold your government accountable, and it's one of the clearest ways to make your voice heard. Recently, St. Petersburg has transitioned to holding municipal elections to align with national election years. That means this year, in addition to elections for president, Congress, the state legislature, and county commission, you'll also have the opportunity to vote for your members of St. Pete City Council. Save these dates for your reference later. For more information about registering, polling locations, and other important information, go to votepinellas.com. Let's vote, St. Pete.
Wardsville, that was actually named for perhaps a businessman and his wife who was maybe for a while the postmistress in town.
They took care of everybody's mail here, and we needed a name, and we were Wardsville until, you know, the magical day where we became St. Petersburg.
And speaking of that, how did it happen?
That's a great story. If you ride the trolleys, you hear a great story about, you know, a coin flip where, you know, Peter Demenz and John Williams, who owned most of what is now downtown St. Petersburg, General John Williams, flipped a coin, right? The winner gets the name of the city, loser gets the name of the first hotel. Makes complete sense, right? The city is St. Petersburg, named after St. Petersburg, Russia, where Peter Demenz is from. The Detroit Hotel is our first hotel, named after Detroit, Michigan, where Williams is from. Great story, but it's not true. We needed a name. And the postmaster wanted a name. Peter Demenz had a press conference saying he was taking his train to St. Petersburg. John Williams didn't want to call it St. Petersburg. So there's all kinds of discussion. So what do you think happened after that?
I think somebody, perhaps one of the partners in that railroad enterprise, said, look, we have to name this after Peter Demenz, and so we're going to name it St. Petersburg, and you go to the post office and tell Ms. Ward that's what it's going to be. And that's probably about how it happened, as simple as that.
It's as close as it came.
My name's Jason Farina. I'm an electrician 2, Parks and Rec. I run the bucket truck, the big bucket. So I basically take care of anything that's over 15 feet in the air, sports lighting, tennis courts, basketball courts, the decorative lighting, stuff like that. We're at Boyd Hill Nature Center, and we're retrofitting the parking lot lights with LED, so we're getting rid of the old inefficient HID lighting. Safer, better on the environment all the way around, so it's a win-win. I get a lot of one-on-one time with citizens when I'm out and about. You know, I like when they come up and ask me questions. I never have a problem talking with people. Anybody ever comes up and asks me questions, I'm more than helpful. Like the new LED lights and stuff, I get a lot of positive feedback from that. People feel safer and it makes for a nicer environment. You know, we have a lot of osprey nests and wildlife like that. Down at Lake Vista, I got to see the osprey from being eggs to being hatchlings. I watched the mom and dad teach them how to fly. It was pretty cool. Once you get up over 30 feet or so, it's like everything is quiet. You get to focus on me and my work without having to worry about what's going on down below. It's like a whole different world, you know?
Sign painting was a very blue-collar job. It wasn't a glorified art by any means. The people that were practicing sign painting, they had to find the most efficient means of going about it. So oftentimes they would draw it directly on and paint from there. And when you take that approach, it's prone to accidents. Sometimes you'll have the proportions a little bit off, or you'll see a little bit of these imperfections. And I think that's really charming. I think that catches people's eye. They feel a little bit more connected to the personality of the lettering or of the sign. At an art studio, it was a warehouse, and there was a lot of other great artists, and I realized no one there was really focused on lettering. In that time, they asked me to start painting signs for each different art show that came about, and that really got me the experience and working on a large scale. I totally fell in love with crafting the letters and building them up from scratch. There's reverse glass signs, there's wall signs, A-frames, we have blade signs, hanging signs. There's a wide array. One aspect of the work I do is gold leaf work. It's pretty magical to watch it happen. You're applying these thin sheets of gold to either glass or on the surface, and you paint the background and then remove the excess of the gold, and it kind of reveals the lettering that you painted. St. Pete has a really great small business community, and I've had the opportunity to work with so many great people that started out as clients and become good friends. I really appreciate the trust that people give me to help them and advise on what sign's gonna work best for them. At the end of the day, you eat with your eyes before you do with your mouth, so having a good sign will leave a lasting impression. And you might not always know why you like it or dislike it, but it sticks with you.
This is Ray Jack's food store in South St. Pete on MLK, and we're here for the inauguration of the Fresh Pace Healthy Neighborhood Store program.
As you know, we are in an area where we have a food desert, a food disparity, and we've had a small business owner that had the ability to step up and participate in a program that actually will provide healthy food to the residents within a walking distance of their residence.
Well, this is a community
neighborhood store. You know, we provide a lot of items here, you know, from fresh meats. We're mostly known for our meats here. Before, we were very limited with what we could display. So now kind of gave them a little bit more variety with the vegetables and recipes, you know, to use.
Purchasing those items in the volume that smaller stores would purchase them at is so cost prohibitive. And so this program allows for monthly grants to store owners to make those purchases so they don't have to use their reserves to do that, and in turn can sell that food at a very affordable cost to their customers coming in.
It's a real partnership with small neighborhood stores like Ray Jack's Meat Market here in South St. Petersburg, and it's funded primarily through American Rescue Plan funds. We are allocating about $1.2 million in funding to address food insecurity in our city.
We're going to have 6 by the end of 2024. This is only phase 1, and I'm so glad that they saw this area of town, this district, to have its kickoff.
It's visually appealing, it makes sense from a business perspective, and of course the community gets what they need in terms of healthy food at an affordable cost.
It looks great, the produce looks great. There are a variety of healthy choices that would appeal to young folks through seniors. Everyone ought to have access to healthy food choices.
FireTech Echo, Engine 5, District 10, District 5, Engine 4, structure fire.
If you truly want to be part of the best, then St. Pete Fire Rescue is for you.
I love this job. We have no idea what's going to happen every shift. We just go to work. We don't know when the rain's going to come.
When the public calls on us, it's normally their darkest times and their darkest moments, and they depend on us.
We have to trust each other. In a fire, all we have is the team.
You know, we go into some very dangerous situations sometimes, so we need that feeling like there's someone there right along with you.
The spectrum of how we positively impact every person in our community is huge.
St. Petersburg Fire Rescue responds to over 60,000 calls per year. Of those 60,000 calls per year, over 70% are medically related.
We are fire and EMS. We are one team together, but we also have a lot of other avenues that a firefighter or firefighter paramedic can progress in their career.
St. Petersburg has specialty teams, technical rescue team, a dive team, and the hazardous materials team. So it's above and beyond the normal fire training that you get.
It takes a hardworking, selfless person with some good moral character. There's a lot of pride in this job and a lot of tradition that comes with it as well.
We're called to keep the citizens safe, but also keep each other safe. And you have to have that passion, that want to, that drive to not only do better, but be better.
I joined the military. I became a firefighter in the Air Force. It was a natural progression from the military service to a paramilitary organization such as St. Pete Fire Rescue.
The fire department is a semi-military organization, so we take direction through a chain of command. We train to an exhaustive level. We feel that the more you train, the better prepared you are to go.
I went through the cadet program. It was an awesome opportunity. Not only do they take you under their wing, they pay for your education, fire academy and EMT school.
We depend on each other. We live in an intimate setting. We live like in a house, and we're very much like a nuclear family.
It's brothers and sisters. We have our fun times. We like to play with each other. The best parts are always lunch and dinner, because when everyone sits at the table, we go over how our 2 days were when we got off, see what everyone's doing.
It's where you grow as a person. You kind of learn life lessons. Camaraderie is very important. It makes the job easier, not so much of a job.
You know, we're here every third day, so we treat this just like we treat our house. We have to clean the bathrooms just like we clean the bathrooms. Take out the trash, make sure it looks good. Clean the trucks, inventory the trucks. You take care of it just like you take care of your home.
Every station has gym with full equipment.
The department's training division is very involved in health and fitness initiative.
We have an extensive behavioral health program. We assess risk within the fire department in 3 main areas. One is behavioral health, physical fitness, and on-the-job duties that we do, and then in training.
In St. Petersburg Fire Rescue, it's important to us to have a fire response service that reflects the community that we serve.
St. Petersburg is a very diverse city, and we can all work to reach a common goal together.
We've had folks that come to us and reach out to us, and that's the kind of trust we're looking for with our public.
One of our biggest programs is our Home Safe program, which provides free smoke alarm installations to City of St. Petersburg homeowners. Another big component is public education and community outreach. We provide public education on fire safety and injury prevention to citizens of all ages.
To me, being on the front lines as a first responder, I'm blessed every single day. There's no better feeling when you lay your head down at night and you're like, wow, I really had a hand in helping.
It's hard work, but it's hard work towards doing something great.
I know for a fact that I work for a really good fire department. It's an extreme honor.
You want to do something you love, this is the place. If you want to be the best, this is the place. You can't get any better place to work.
I'm Dan Gulick. Join our team.
Hola, me llamo Teresa Bieber Rishi. Únete a nosotros.
제 이름은 김희경입니다. 세인트 피터스버그 소방관에 가입하세요.
I am Aaron Walton. Join our team.
St. Pete, it's that time of year. Hurricane season has officially begun from now until November 30th. Now, we all know hurricane preparedness is a part of life here in St. Pete, and the best time to prepare for a hurricane is before there's one approaching. So let's all take the necessary steps together to proactively prepare for this year's season. And here are a few tips. Sign up to receive emergency notifications with Alert Pinellas. Know your evacuation zone. Review Pinellas County's hurricane guide. Avoid the lines and fill your sandbags now. Follow @StPeteFL and @Mayor Ken Welch on social media. More tips can be found at stpete.org/hurricane. Your safety is always a top priority. When emergencies arise, we need to work together. We are St. Pete.
District 4 is centrally located in St. Petersburg, from Coffee Pot and North Shore to the east and I-275 to the west. It reaches as far north as 77th Avenue North and as far south as 5th Avenue North. I'm Councilmember Lisette Hanowitz, your representative for District 4. I love where I'm standing right now, where baseball legends played. Huggins Stengel Field hosted the New York Yankees spring training sessions with players like Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and Joe DiMaggio, all the way back in 1925. This baseball field is located in what I consider one of the city's best parks, Crescent Lake Park, a 56-acre city park featuring the natural Crescent Lake, home to an incredible amount of wildlife. And of course, one of the city's most recognizable landmarks resides in Crescent Lake neighborhood, the Water Tower. Standing above the treetops at 110 feet tall, the tower features local artist Tom Stovall's mural and plays host to a pandemonium of green monk parrots. One of the best parts of District 4 are the many unique neighborhoods with their diverse architecture and residents that call this district home. Historical Northeast, Greater Woodlawn, Euclid St. Paul, and Crescent Lake and Crescent Heights are just a few of the great neighborhoods that represent the area. Our numerous parks allow our neighborhoods to enjoy casual waterfront strolls, swimming laps in the pool, play a few games, and a moment to reflect while taking in the nature that surrounds our city. Speaking of nature that surrounds you, tucked away in District 4 is a true tropical oasis. right along 4th Street North. Sunken Gardens is considered St. Pete's oldest living museum and has been around for more than 100 years. Meandering paths guide visitors through a living collection of more than 50,000 tropical plants and flowers. And don't forget about the flock of flamingos. There's really no shortage of energy, nature, neighborhoods, and great local businesses to enjoy while you spend a little time in District 4.
Hey St. Pete, and welcome to the definitive guide for how to be the best president you can be. A little tip from your Good Neighbor Guide. It's time to talk some trash. Well, not really, but we are talking about waste here. We all have waste, and so what we do with it is super important. Let's break it down. The good, the bad, the do's, and don'ts. The city works around the clock to dispose of our various waste, so let's do our part by being a good neighbor. So, when it comes to your trash collection day, remember, place your container with the lid opening facing the street by 7 a.m. And don't forget, remove your container from the curb by 7 p.m. later that day. Here's what not to put in your container: appliances, furniture, and any hazardous materials, such as batteries, paint, electronics, and more. But there's good news, people. The city will pick up the following items for free. Box springs, footboards, refrigerators, car batteries, fuel tanks, sofas, car tires, headboards, stoves, dishwashers, mattresses, washers, doors, nightstands, water heaters, dryers, ovens, and windows. There's a super helpful link on the bottom of this screen that will give you more details on special pickups. Yard project got you loaded with yard waste? No worries. We've got you covered with 5 brush sites around the city. St. Pete residents can drop off yard waste and other organic byproducts for free. You just have to show proof of city residency like a driver's license or utility bill. Just remember, yard waste must not contain plastics or metal. Limbs and logs should be less than 5 feet long, and tree stumps should weigh less than 300 pounds. While we're here, let's cover recycling, because eliminating waste is the right thing to do. Let's break down what the City of St. Pete recycles. Here's what to recycle: aluminum and steel cans and lids, cardboard, glass containers, milk and juice cartons, all paper materials, plastics labeled number 1 through 7, and plastic cups and bottles. What isn't recyclable? Ceramics, electronics, flimsy plastic like food wrap, anything tainted by food, think pizza box. Light bulbs, batteries, mirrors, plastic bags, or styrofoam. One more time for the people in the back. No plastic bags in the recycling bin. Thank you. There's a printable Good Neighbor Guide and a whole bunch more information on this topic that can be found on the City of St. Petersburg's website. The St. Pete Collects app is also a super convenient way to help you with all your waste matter questions and schedules. Join us in the road to zero. St. Pete's plan to be zero waste by 2050. And remember the 6 R's: refuse, reduce, repair, reuse, recycle, and rot. This stuff is so easy, a kid could do it. We all love our city, so let's do our part by following St. Pete's Good Neighbor Guide.
My name is Catherine Washington, and I'm the first Black female firefighter for the City of St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'm very proud to be that and hold that title. A trailblazer is a person, and they go out and they do something that is mostly done by one gender. And they pierce that and they make something out of it that redistributed what people think of each other. I always wanted to kind of do what I call dangerous work. Something that somebody else didn't want to do, you know. So when my sister said, hey, they hiring, so I said, I want to go for the fire department. And I went. In this world, for me to be a firefighter, it was the most unique thing that I could ever think to be. Me being in the Army Reserve gave me a step up to think I could do way more things. I could lift the weights, I could come out of the building out of a window just like the man did, and that gave me the chance to do it. We used to have the Martin Luther King parade. One time, I didn't want to be in the parade, I wanted to see the parade. Well, I had these 3 African-American older females that I knew knock on my door and say to me, you do not miss another parade as long as you're on this department, because we have young girls out here who need to see you and know that they can aspire to be what you are. So don't be standing over here in the crowd with us. You be out there walking with them fellas. If I could say something to kids who think they can't aspire to be this because they have problems and they think those problems hold them down, don't let what you think you hold you back. Aspire to be what you want to be in spite of that. And then you can see yourself being somebody else.
Hi, I'm Jane and I work at Sunken Gardens, and my job is to take care of the parrots, 2 kookaburras, and a flock of flamingos, interact with them and just really enjoy the little slice of paradise at Sunken Gardens. What we're doing is, before we open at 10, getting everything done so that when the public arrives, all the birds are out and fed and happy. They're all unique. They all say different things, and it's just a lot of fun to interact with them. I love this job because it's unique. I don't think I'd ever find another one like it. It's just a really fun experience for me. Flamingos are very sociable and like people, love the people that handle them, and they're very sweet. So the fact that we have 2 that have been here over 62 years, it's kind of amazing. We also take care of the tortoises. We have South American red-footed tortoises and a huge old alligator snapping turtle. Sunken Gardens is an incredibly beautiful place. If the city hadn't bought it, who knows what this would be like now. To me, it is just an incredible, beautiful place. And when you're in here, you don't even realize that you're in the middle of a busy city. At the end of the day, when I leave, after they're all back inside in their cages, they all tell us bye. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye. The worst part of my day, I guess, is pulling out onto 4th Street. It's just really fun to work here and incredible, good, fun job.
I think a lot of people don't realize how long we've been together and how long I have been working within the studio. Like, just because they don't see me all the time doesn't mean that I haven't been integral to the studio and that you haven't been integral to my life. Like, you've been my mentor here since 2008, and I love this space. And this is my home. And as a filmmaker, because I am a filmmaker, we always have this thing called our passion project. Like, this is the film that I have to make before I die. I'll spend all my money to make it. Like, it's one of those types of things. And I sat back one day and I started thinking, do I have that project as a filmmaker? And that project for me was the studio. I knew I wanted it with all my being and fiber and love to lead this organization, to pour back into this organization that poured into me.
You want to actually give back without even saying, I'm giving back. It's just, Oprah calls it a full circle moment. Yeah. And I just knew, and the Board of Trustees knew, that you would be a good steward of this assignment.
But also, you are still going to be a guiding light for me. You're still going to be a mentor.
It's just a natural progression, and that you were around all these years to take over. The nuance of this place is simply, well, I've distilled it to the answer is always yes.
Always yes.
Because that affirms we're gonna do this.
The waterfront view is my favorite part about living right here in St. Pete.
Sounds of the water, the sounds of different species of birds. I find it very soothing and relaxing.
Everybody ride good? How you feel?
Yeah, I feel good. It's like a perfect day for it.
The pelican? Yeah, he's fishing for some fish too. Say yay, fishing!
Hay un alfiler en una orilla de una ciudad en un mapa, como una esmeralda en la oscuridad o un ojo de pelícano. Oh península de sol, mar y baños. Aquí somos tan diversos como las conchas, la flora y las muchas aves que nos visitan cada invierno. Sí, somos banh mi, empanadas, caniches, injera, roti. Somos reggaetón, rap, cumbia, trap, jazz, rock y folk. Caminemos por el St. Pete Youth Farm para encontrar todo tipo de raíces entrelazados, alimentándose de la misma tierra. Aquí hacemos espacio para todos. Mira las historias pintadas en las paredes, calles y intersecciones. Neón, prismáticas y sin miedo de hacer ruido, porque el arte brilla aquí, donde pintamos el arco iris por la ciudad con orgullo y decimos gay, donde las vidas negras importan y donde una hija de inmigrantes puede ser su poeta laureada. Thank you. Hay un alfiler en una orilla, en una ciudad, en un mapa. Acércate, respira el aire salado. Mi gente, miren a su alrededor. Somos St. Pete. We are St. Pete.
My name is Jason Hughes. I'm one of the police officers that rides the police horses. We're part of the Mounted Patrol Unit. So I ride Jacob, and I've been riding Jacob for 10 years now. We drove all the way to Boston to pick up our horses and bring them down, and we've been best buddies ever since. You get to really know the horse, and I spend more time with my horse than I do with my family. It's 40 hours a week, and probably 30 of that spent with my horse. Every interaction we have with our horses is training, either for good or for bad. We're teaching them good habits or bad habits every time we interact with them. And sometimes we have to push through groups of people to say, get to a fight and break it up, or move a crowd out of the way to get paramedics through. And as part of that, we have a ginormous 6-foot inflatable ball that we have the horses push against. It's kind of against their nature a little bit to push into people and things. So we get them over that by making a game out of it. And they push this big, huge, giant ball to get over their fears of that. We do high visibility patrol because we really stand out and we stand 9 feet tall. It's got to be over 100 events a year where we go to large groups of people, they come interact with us, and we can see everything that's happening in the event and make sure that police presence is really felt. We also do a lot of community relations. So we do special events where we can interact with the community and build strong bonds within our community and the police department. And we also do enforcement and assist guys that are on the ground doing their jobs. I had, before my job with the police department, when I finished college, spent 2 years traveling with the Renaissance Festival doing a jousting show. My brother got me a job right out of college, and so I spent 2 years traveling the country, wearing a bunch of armor, getting knocked off a horse with a big stick. Yeah, I've had more of my time in employment been spent with a horse involved than not at this point. Everybody loves horses. So it creates that bridge. People that might feel a little trepidatious about coming up and talking to the police, they have that easy bridge. If they come over, they ask questions about the horse, they can come pet them, get a picture with them. And even today, now more than ever, those bonds between the community and the police department are vital. So we need to really build those bonds and then have the community trust us, interact with us, know that we're good guys trying to help them out.
District 1 is located west of 49th Street North, from 7th Avenue South to 40th Avenue North. It's where the city meets Bogosiega Bay. I'm Councilmember Copley Gertis, your representative for District 1. Standing here by the baseball fields at Northwest Park has a special meaning to me. This is the park where I spent my childhood racing in the pool, playing youth baseball growing up, and where countless residents have enjoyed all kinds of outdoor activities. Northwest Park is also the home to the J.W. Cate Rec Center. District 1 is filled with an abundance of beautiful large parks. Residents can enjoy a run around Walter Fuller Park, the boardwalk's water views from Abercrombie Park, or a round of frisbee golf at Azalea Park. Swimming pools, dog parks, walking trails, outdoor gym facilities, and more serve whatever you seek this side of town. I love that the neighborhoods surrounding the parks, such as Jungle Prada and Jungle Terrace, inherit the lush landscape and wildlife we love within the park system. As if these parks aren't enough to keep you in touch with nature, some of the best beaches in the world are a quick drive or a bike ride away. The proximity between the Gulf beaches and downtown St. Pete make this part of St. Pete one of a kind. This side of St. Petersburg has become a mecca for local shops and restaurants like Alessia, Two Graces, the Wheelhouse, and the Nosh Pit. With long-standing institutions like St. Pete College, St. Pete Catholic High School, and Admiral Farragut all help support the diverse culture throughout District 1. There's no denying the vibrant display of energy, nature, neighborhoods, and great local businesses when you spend a little time in District 1.
When you look at the top concern for residents in an urban city or even our rural communities, a growing number of Americans list affordable housing at the top of the list. Here in St. Pete, it's no different. I'm standing here at the Shores in South St. Pete with 51 new affordable units made possible by a county-wide collaboration. Understanding the relationship between our quality of life and housing is critical. That's why I'm launching the Housing Opportunities for All plan, an intentional expansion to our existing housing plan that addresses the current state of our city. The plan aims to produce new affordable housing units, preserve existing affordable housing, and protect tenants. Housing Opportunities for All is more than a priority in our administration. It's a foundational part of our mission, a pillar for progress. This year, we've designated more than $40 million to build new affordable housing units and plan to help thousands of residents preserve their current homes over the next several years. We've also implemented powerful protections for renters with our Tenants' Bill of Rights. There is nothing more important to me and our City Council than improving the quality of life for the people of St. Petersburg. And these are just a few examples of the impactful work that's underway right now. I will continue to keep you updated on progress made as we help more families settle into their new homes and stay in their current homes. So working together and listening to each other with our eyes on inclusive progress, we will continue to move the needle on affordable housing. To learn more about the Housing Opportunities for All plan, visit www.stpete.org/affordable housing. We are St. Pete.
So Bobby, I have heard the origin story of your relationship with Jamie and how that kept you here, but I don't think I've ever heard why you wanted to start the studio.
Well, you know, that's a very good question, but I think it stemmed more from, somebody told me this years later that Jamie was just trying to find something for me to do because Dave Ellis and myself, we had not fully formed what the studio would be. And Jim was out looking for a building, found this place, and we were calling it a theater, but not necessarily. And I had never run a nonprofit before. I'd worked for dozens of them, but I had never run one. And so I think it was a convergence of several things, and we just grew into it being what we now understand to be the studio, which is something David Ellis and myself never did an elevator speech or the one soundbite. It's many things. Lately, people have been calling it St. Petersburg's